Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcements. Get some announcements, Ryan, was doing today.
Yeah, just really quick one to announce that Bo Arson was planning to join us this evening, but he won't be able to make it. But he wanted me to share with everybody that Cactus Charlie has officially made its debut. So yeah, so I can actually show everyone here real quick.
It's been posted on the LinkedIn page, hasn't it?
Let's do a share.
You're gonna stop my sharing?
Yeah.
Here.
Sure, I hit with the council.
So it's going to show up here. So Cactus Charlie over there, Cactus Charlie. So it's an official debut. It's up there and everything. So it's gone out on Facebook. It's going to go out next week as well in some additional mailings and flyers and stuff. So it's fully out there so far. So if anybody's got any good ideas, Bo's looking for them to basically get more word out. So
Let's go ahead and do the approval of minutes. Other than need for a second in the adjournment, which I believe Lynn has indicated, which was the person who seconded it. I'm fine with minutes. Any other comments? Okay, move to approve.
So move. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And
hey, Bill, just real quick.
Thank you. Just a reminder. I thought I had hit it on. Must have hit it off again. Anyway, if it's all right with everybody, we'll take item number 2 first. Let Sherry get her part of the meeting done, and she's got lots of things on her mind and activities to do. So, which is discussion and review of the proposed rate models presented during October 15th. And possible action to provide recommendations of utility rates to town council. There was a packet that was provided by Robert, which I appreciate all of it you did. And I would suggest that we'll let you lead and go through your questions, or Sherry, unless you would like to make a presentation of what you are now considering, since you apparently have changed what we saw.
Yeah, I thought I would give you a preview of the presentation that I'm planning on giving to council on November 4th. At the October 15th meeting, they had given us direction to make some changes. So this incorporates the changes that they've asked us to make. So I'm not going to go through this in a ton of details. So just if you have questions as we go, but just to give you an idea of what we're going to be covering. So part of their direction at the work session on October 15th was to change the top tier on the usage rates for water. They were different tiers of what the rates are for each, and the top tier was the highest price was anything 50,000 gallons or more, and they wanted to have that threshold lowered to 40,000 gallons.
Okay.
We did as just a check to see if it would make sense. We did do some scenarios that we will not be presenting to council because we definitely feel like that they will not be appropriate at this point in time of having the top tier be greater than 30,000 gallons. And it was such an enormous rate of change that customers would see. But we're thinking that we would like to gradually get to that point to where the top tier is 30,000 gallons, but it's really tough, to like have somebody go, why did my bill double?
Yes.
You know, type thing. Like, I mean, that was what we were seeing on some of the scenarios we were looking at on that. So the other thing that they asked for was having a seasonal rate structure. So in some communities, they charge less in the wintertime and more in the summertime. So we were looking at that type of scenario. That was what council had requested. We have checked with our software company. And the company that we use is not great. I've already told council that's like one of the things on my to-do list as soon as we get some of these projects dealt with, because we've got way too many projects going on. We're drowning in projects. But I really want to get a new utility billing software because the one that we have is just so limited and doesn't handle things in a manner that we would want them to handle. And particularly being able to really make clear to people on their bills to help promote being conservative with their water usage, how much they're paying because of the tiers and where
Mhm.
they're getting to. So, there is the ability to do the seasonal rate structure. It's not great. We'll see if council is willing to just say, okay, let's wait until we have software that makes it smoother to do that process. And they may say, we still want to do seasonal rates anyway. And
Question,
Yeah.
Nancy Merlino. So seasonal rates, is it just lowering for the snowbirds, or is it increasing as well on a seasonal rate?
so winter rates would be lower than summer rates.
Okay.
And part of that is for promotion of water conservation, because in the summertime, the outdoor water use goes up quite a lot. That's why we see the water usage in the summertime higher than what the winter usage is. And
So you're saying raise the summer rates?
yes,
So not lower winter, we're raising summer.
well, it's neither.
I
It,
I don't think
when you
let's
do
be
when you do the
discussing-
calculations.
I'm asking because I've read a lot about this and I want to understand where this is headed.
So when you do the calculation, so we're a governmental entity running a utility. And as a governmental entity, we are not allowed to make a profit. So we have to calculate how much revenue do we need, and then there's formulas to figure out,
Right.
okay, under these scenarios, how do you shift cost around?
Right.
So it's not really about lowering a rate or increasing a rate, it's inputting the inputs and then having it spit out in a formula of how you divide it, what factors you put. So as you change a factor in one area, it's going to change rates other places that you thought, well, I wasn't changing anything there, but it's because we're trying to keep that zero sum of how much revenue we're trying to generate.
Sure, if I might, revenue, total revenue doesn't change, but the rate structure itself, you'll have based upon what you just said, since water use is higher in the summer, you're gonna have a higher rate, either gallonage or a customer charge in the summer than you will in the winter, correct? But
Correct.
to reach the same revenue requirement for
Yes.
either rate.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's also help us meet the goal of, because it is more costly in summers, trying to shave that peak, because right now our summer peak is more than double the winter peak. So it's just helping smooth out that operations and then doing that. Phoenix does it right now. Currently, some other jurisdictions do that. And it's just, ironically, if we start doing that, we might get some people using less water, which is good overall, but then the revenue guys get balanced out. That's why they have to go through the full rate study to do that. But it's really helping to promote, let's not get that peaks, because we have to build the pipelines, booster pump stations, have the treatment capacity for that higher capacity during the summer. So if we can shave that down, it actually has long-term benefits for the jurisdiction.
Sherry, one of the questions that was that Ryan sent to you and it was there a couple of informational things. One, I asked for the cost of service study, or at least the summary pages for it, so that we could see how you broke it down and broke it into the different categories and how you justified all that. And secondly, we were asking for customer counts, so we could see the winter summer differential, the different customer usage in each category, to see if we had a different recommendation as to where you're breaking it down, whether we wanted to, well, at least as far as I was concerned, for the customer charge should be not as high as what you're proposing. But I can't do any of that without the underlying data. And so it's really,
you know, what kind of stuff?
There's gonna be some stuff in here that you'll see some of the stuff about the customers.
Okay,
Um,
but
but-
it's not in a customer count where it's broken down by every customer charge or every 1,000 gallons like a normal customer count would be. If you're looking at rates and trying to figure out where is the appropriate
Wh-
breakdown.
We'll see when we get to that slide, if it's gonna satisfy what you're looking for.
Okay.
But okay, and there was something else I was gonna say and I forgot what it was.
We are building the lowest tier on, we're still doing that for 4,000.
Yes, that's not, we didn't change anything from the October 15th work session, so that still is the same.
So you're still having the lower one.
Yes. Yeah, we've got lots of slides. I'll be getting through all of that stuff for you.
Okay, great.
Okay, so the consultant, what they did was they looked at the rates in a few different ways. So this is looking at how much revenue do we need to generate. So if we were not having to go out and get more water resources, then we would be looking at having a 6% increase in fiscal year 26. Fiscal year 27, another 6%, and then 5% in fiscal year 28. And that would mean that we would still need to have some general fund subsidies, but be able to wean off. But as we know, there's not a whole lot of options there of not having water resources. But this becomes that base scenario for when we're looking at having a separate water resource fee. This on the top table is if we don't do a separate water resource fee, then we were saying 6% increases for the 3 years, but then more general fund subsidy because we were trying to have it so it wasn't like an astronomical increase in the rates. But then it would be more reliance on the general fund. And that's problematic. I don't know if you're aware, but when the town decided to take on having a fire department, what they had done at that point in time was they had some consultants come in, do some forecasting and estimation. And part of what was said was the utilities would need to get to the point to where they're not relying on general fund subsidies in order to be able to afford the fire department. So that's going to be a very big issue of if we're not getting ourselves weaned off of the general fund subsidies to the utilities, then we're going to end up eating up all of our reserves that we have in the general fund in a short period of time. If it continues at high levels, so like, saying, oh, well, we don't want to do these kind of increases and have more general fund subsidy, that's very problematic. And so really it's like either we address that or we raise taxes.
Okay.
So, because there's a limited amount of resources and the sources of where they come from. In the bottom table, so this is looking at having a separate water resource fee included and still having the 6% increases on the rates, but getting off the general fund subsidy by fiscal year 28.
Then is that the $3 and something?
Yeah, but we also have some stuff that we're going to be presenting
Okay.
on that too. So
Thanks.
with Desert Hills. So we're going to have 2 options here that we're presenting. So 6% increases on the first one, which would still have general fund loans needed. The one on the bottom, option B, is bumping it up to 10% increases to help move away from needing the general fund loans. So that does create a lot of pressure on Desert Hills at that high of a rate increase. So we'll see what council says about, do they want to accelerate their rate increases. Part of really what the thought is we have an obligation with our tax money towards the town of Cave Creek residents, and to have Desert Hills put a burden financially on the what we are providing as services to the town of Cave Creek, besides utilities, fire and all of that, in lieu of, giving money to Desert Hills essentially on a loan for, could be a very long-term basis depending upon what the rate increases are. So really wanting to minimize that impact of Desert Hills on the general fund and the services that we provide. And then here's what we have for Cave Creek wastewater. So 6% the first couple of years and 5%. It still involves quite hefty general fund subsidies. As you probably know at this point, we don't have a whole lot of wastewater customers. And so it's really difficult to spread the cost of a very large plant across a small number of customers. We just don't have that economies of scale. And it would be like astronomical rate increases to get to a point of no subsidy at this point. So they take those percentage increases and then say, okay, now what does that equate to as far as what the rates would be? There's a base charge for each one of the utilities. So for Cave Creek Water, this is what the base charges would be based off of the meter size. This is intended to help cover the fixed costs. However, it does not cover all the fixed costs of the system. We do push some of the fixed costs into the calculation for the usage rates. And essentially, like if you were to include all the fixed costs in the base fee, you would have very, very minimal distinction in what your usage rates are. And that's not very productive if you're trying to promote water conservation and things like that.
Did you look at keeping in 2026 the proposed base rates and just putting any increase in the volumetric increase?
No, we did not. That's also problematic of putting too much of the fixed cost into the volume rates because it's a little counterintuitive of as we get lots more, I mean, small amounts of water conservation, really, you're not going to see much of a difference. But when you really get people like really proactively being conservative with their water, we still need to generate pretty much the same amount of revenue because there's so much of it that's fixed costs. And so now you have less water usage and then people are going to go, I'm using less water, but now my rates are higher and I'm paying more as much as what I was before. But really, when you're being conservative and not having to also then go get more water resources, your rates could have been even higher if you weren't being conservative. So people don't always get that part of it.
I understand this, that there is a fine line and we are looking for conservation and I realize there's a trade-off on revenue stability. But you try to factor that in as much best you can. And so I was just asking whether, because you have a scale within rate increase, then the base rates are going up. And that's why I was just curious if you looked at the scenario where those base rates just stayed where what council's already approved and look at volume rates as the primary focus.
We did not. And part of the way that we've structured it kind of follows what is very common in the industry of how we do the splits. The difference, so it's a little more pronounced here with Cave Creek Water as far as the difference between a regular meter and a boosted meter. But when we get to the slide for Desert Hills, it's actually going to show that the boosted meters are going to have a decrease in their base rate because we updated those calculations.
And while we have a current adopted rate schedule, so the last time we did the rates was 22. Before that was 2020. In 2020 we did a 1 year, and we actually mapped it out. And then we realized we were already falling behind by the end of 21. So we went into the 22 study for two things to catch up with that, and then also have the discussion because at that point we had the settlement with Carefree, and we knew we were losing those 550 customers and almost $1 million in revenue. So we had to balance that out. So And in the 22 study, we asked for a 6-year program, but we didn't have our capital program put together because we didn't have the integrated master plan done, and we didn't know the water resource situation at that time. So this is a new, and if you look back at the presentations we did in the 22 study, even though we asked for 6 years for some stability, so we didn't have to come at this, we said we're probably going to have to come back before that 6-year timeframe to do this update, which is what we're doing right now.
My question was simply, because there is a base rate increase and whether you've looked at that as an option. So you didn't, that you've answered the question.
Yeah.
I realize the total revenue requirement has changed from what you looked at in 2022. That's a whole different fact. I was just asking whether you looked at it as a base scenario based upon what was looking in 2026.
Yeah, we're essentially at the lowest amount of the percentage of the cost going to the base rate to the fixed rate that would be recommended. So we're already like there. There's other municipalities that put more to the base rate of the percentage of cost than what we do. But we also don't have the economies of scale that they do. Okay. On the volume rates, so this is taking what was proposed to council and updating it to have the top tier be 40,000, greater than 40,000 instead of the 50,000. And so here you can see the comparison of the current rates compared to those updated, and it's adding that tier of the 0 to 4,000.
Sorry, where's the? Oh, okay, I got you. Okay, I got you. I was looking at the wrong column.
And then the next slide is commercial rates. That we are not doing the 0 to 4,000 on the commercial side, just the residential side. And then we also have separate rates for common area and commercial irrigation as well. And we also have separate rates for commercial pools, which is not very many. And then this slide shows what the rates would be with the seasonal. So at the top, the winter rates, and at the bottom, the summer rates. And this is residential. And then the next slide is commercial rates for seasonal, winter and summer.
I assume you mean May through September?
Oh, yeah. I will point that out to our consultant that, yeah.
Yes, it's free.
Yeah, no, he definitely meant May through September. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, that's complete.
See, it's good to preview this with you before the council meeting.
Yeah, they all have.
So, there's seasonal rates for the residential, commercial, common area and irrigation, and the commercial pool.
And all of these are to generate the same amount.
Yes.
And is there a chart in here that indicates what that revenue target is? And how it's broken out?
No, that was part of the models that were shown in the October 15th meeting, so we weren't planning on going over that again.
Stuff we couldn't read.
Yeah, you had a separate set of which weren't handed out of financials. And so if you could at least provide us those, that'd be good. Because they were not handed out, they weren't given to us, and they weren't handed out at the time meeting, they were just outlined.
Yeah, so it's based off of the budget projections and based off of the CIP and then inflationary factors. But it starts with the budget amount. So with the fiscal year 26 budget amounts.
But I understood there was some fine tuning of that to get to your revenue requirement for.
There was some shifting around of some of the CIP projects, pushing some of those out.
So, and they're fairly big dollars, so.
Mhm. Yeah.
You have the three tables that Ryan sent out were actually the ones that are in the rate model. So we didn't do a differentiation to show you how we had moved stuff around, but we worked quite a lot with Sherry. You know, we had the adopted CIP, which we adopted. We basically locked that in around March. And then we actually worked through June with adjustments with the rate with the proposed CIP. You know, the council adopts a 1 year, a 5 year capital program, but only funds the first year of it. And then for the rate study, we actually do 10 years. So we were up through the end, and when we had to say pause on this, we were moving projects around within the 10 year CIP to know what we were dealing with. And then as things came clear, especially with water resources side, so that you're looking at the adopted capital improvement program. But
That
you also
was,
got,
and then these.
yeah,
I looked at this and
Yeah.
that's part of, as I understand, the operational side isn't on. This is just the CIP component. So, yeah, I think your slides had both.
Yes, I don't know if it was on the dashboard slide, but yeah, but the operational, so, I don't know if you have the rest of the budget document, but the operational costs are in the budget. So,
yeah. And what we did is actually in the operational costs is there's just a percentage increase. You know, we 22, we looked out and we did some things. We factored in some full-time employees within the next few years, and those have actually been realized in the budget. So the operational budget really accounted for, there's some standard percentage increases in electrical costs were put into that, escalators, like water costs. They actually got the CAP proposed model, which goes out 5 years, and looked at that and projected it out. So there's some escalators built into the base budget of how things are going. That's how we built it. And then the CIP is really the biggest component of the funding that we're trying to deal with. So the base work that we did on the base budget was really just looking at and the escalators. And I think that was brought out in one of the first presentations as far as what was used. And I think a lot of it's similar to 22 as far as like electrical costs and stuff like that. The percentage increases year over year that we had built into the model.
I couldn't tell you what was in 22, so, and I don't remember what they are in the model off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know when
but-
you done it the first time, they sounded to be pretty much the same. So, yeah.
And I have a
Okay.
question, Nancy Merlino. So on the commercial, common area and commercial irrigation and commercial pool,
Mhm.
why are we not increasing that at least to match residential? If at least. So they're getting a bargain. Well, I say a bargain, it's a couple dollars, but you know, it's. In my mind, that should be looked at in the future to see if those should be at least over 40,000, should at least be the same as single and multifamily.
We can put that in.
Because
There's very few of these, so it's very marginal on the
Commer-
impacts that it would have, but we can.
commercial,
Mhm.
common area commercial and commercial pool. But at least then, to me, if someone's, looking at this and auditing, it, to me, would be more.
Yeah, I would suggest that on just like the straight commercial, not the irrigation or the pool, that you do want to be careful to some extent with
Why?
how high, because it depends upon the type of business. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing outdoor water usage. So on the residential side, when you're using that much water, you're not using it indoors. It's not going down in the
But with
sewer.
toilets, so if we increase that, they have to go through their business, make sure that they are truly doing conservation issues. And it takes capital, and it does take their capital, to make sure, and maybe it won't even affect them, but that's just my suggestion, is that those should at least equal over 40,000. It should equal residential, single and multifamily.
I don't know if somebody's putting together a list of what your recommendations are going to be to council, but that's something that you could propose to them.
Sharon, one of the things I wanted to point out to you was, comment on.
Yeah.
If you look at your 2026 rates proposals, that are approved now versus your proposed, the commercial rates, except until you get to the final big blocks, are actually lower than what they would be if you just went in what you've already adopted.
Because we pushed more to the higher tiers. So when you're trying to get the same amount of revenue, again, you're It just depends on how are you dividing those costs
So
amongst
additional
all of them.
revenue that's made from this cannot go towards Harkahala,
Or Kahela.
Harkahala. I got close there.
You're
Did you
close.
notice? I got the harp right, right? Hark- Do you see what I'm saying? So what she's saying, what I'm hearing is that she's trying to, balance things. But so if you end up with more money, can that go towards a lot of these projects and these other things? Or is that not how that money can go? That's what I'm asking.
You responded to my suggestion last time that that's possible, that we could create a reserve, to explore future water resources. And that would be a budget line item that we could use.
Yeah, at this point, on those pages where I was showing what the overall revenue increases that we're looking at, we're still looking at also having general fund reserves. So either we're talking about even higher rate increases or more general fund subsidies coming in to do something like that. So we're not at that point to where the utilities are self-sufficient to be able to then have rate increases that would start building reserve. That's going to be further down the road.
Okay, so then the 40,000, what I suggested is something that is possible to at least get that equal to the single. Because it's not like we're making all this extra money that's just sitting around. That's what I'm hearing.
Oh, no, definitely.
Okay,
Because we're relying on general fund subsidies to help make them whole.
okay.
Desert Hills, so here's looking at the monthly base charges for the two different options. Option A was the rate increases at 6%. Option B was the rate increases at 10%. So you will see that the boosted rates at the 5/8 to 1 inch do go down.
Under B, you mean? Option B?
Both. So option A, the boosted goes from $87.61 to $82.71.
Oh, I see. For
Sean,
next year.
why is the boosted rate differential so much different between the two systems? Explain to me what is it the number of boosters you're dealing with? or-
Yeah, it's really number of boosters number of accounts being served per booster is really what the factor is. So the town's always had, Cape Creek Water's always had a boosted rate. So it was boosted, I think, when it was a private water company, and then the town continued that when we bought it, and then it went through some stepped increases. The last real analysis that was done was around 2015, and they looked at a couple of larger booster sites and tried to come up with a new rate, and that's where the $10.71 per account came up with. And the thought of boosted, if you're not familiar with that, so the town provides water to the Neary site, which is just south of the water treatment plant. The thought is that plant, whatever goes in the Neary, it gets boosted into a pressure zone 4 or 7 is a free boost, and anything below 4 is fed by pressure reducing valves. Therefore, they're not getting boosted, but we have a lot of smaller sites that get boosted above that. So we have to pay for those extra booster sites. So the analysis that was done before, they only looked at a handful of sites. What we had the time to do this year is we actually looked at all the sites. And if you look at Cave Creek Water, there's 7 individual booster sites that boost above zone 7 that we have to account for. And a lot of them, we have a couple of booster sites that only have 2 or 3 customers on them. So they're very costly per site. So when we looked at that analysis, we came up with a number for those, the cost on an aggregate for all the boosted sites. But then you look at Desert Hills actually only has a couple of booster sites that are feeding. Desert Hills is almost 1,900 customers, and actually there's only 3 sites that feed basically everything. So it's basically the number of accounts being fed from each site. So we did that full calculation, and that's why we have something which we think is very defendable between the 2 companies, because they operate differently and they are structured differently and they're set up differently.
I was just,
Yeah, physically. Yeah.
you're raising the differential in the Cape Creek system and lowering it in the Desert Hills
Yeah.
system, and
It's defendable and justifiable.
On
Yeah.
those ones that are really, really expensive, because there's only 2 or 3, could you not isolate those and charge them what they really should be paying? I mean, I'm assuming there are people up on the top of the mountain, which tells me that they probably can afford it. It isn't the person down in the middle of town that we're talking about, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But aren't
you
these
basically
two
have to set up separate water companies
Why? You know where.
because there's
identify-
legal requirement to not discriminate between customers.
It's cost based. I'm not
It's-
You can certainly charge based upon cost incurrence. That's what you're doing anyway. And you're just, it's a question of how much you want to spread it over everybody. It's the fact that one person has a booster and another has a booster doesn't mean they're equal boosters. And it doesn't mean that the cost to serve them is the same. And if you can isolate it properly and charge them fairly, I'm not trying to be unreasonable. I'm just saying if there's a handful of people that are causing this to go up significantly, maybe
It's
they
not
could be.
significant. It's, I mean, look at, I mean, I don't think that's significant.
I'm not talking about Desert Hills, I'm talking about, Cave Creek.
Okay, well, we're talking about Desert Hills right now. So
No, we're talking about booster rates. And
that's that's not where she was. So if we get.
Yeah,
there-
he's going back. So the Cave Creek water base charges on the boosted.
Okay, here we go. Let's go to that then, so that I'm with him.
So
So here you're back here.
a $15 a month differential, spreading it across
There we go.
everybody in that category
Okay.
on the size of the meter.
Okay,
And that's certainly one way to do it, Jerry. I'm not arguing that it's not a way to do it. I'm just saying, what I just heard was that there were a few people that cost a lot. And when you spread that across the limited number on booster in general, it still is a very high number. $15 differential versus 2 or 3 on Desert Hills. And I was just wondering, my question was, is it possible to segregate out reasonably the high cost ones and make them pay their share? So the rest of those who are on booster and should pay a differential too, don't get me, I'm not saying they should
Yeah.
pay a differential, but.
yeah,
is-
our attorney is not here. But that would be something to ask him about.
I am an attorney. I used to do water rates my entire life, so I have a fair feel for what could be done. And again, whether you want to do it is a whole different story.
Yeah, well, and I'm sorry, I'm not aware of your background. But things are different in governmental, so I don't know if that your experience was governmental or not, so. Yeah.
so let's put that as a question. That's a good question, William. Let's put that as a question to possibly talk about or look into.
Yeah.
My question and listening to this would be, there's, for instance, if I have a 2-inch meter, I'm talking Cape Creek, $300.09. Now, if I'm boosted, so am I hearing this correctly? That let's say there's 10 2-inch boosted meters. Are you saying, William, that, one, if it's boosted 100 feet and one it's boosted 1,000 feet? Is that what he's just talking about is different
No,
or?
it's just the fact that it's boosted. It's boosted above what we said is our standard, which is the pressure zone 7 is the base, and numerically the ones less than 7 are actually fed by pressure reducing valves.
Okay.
Therefore, we don't boost it.
So anything that goes to this one area
Yeah.
is called boosted.
Yeah,
that-
so we actually can break out, we have it per zone. That's how we did the calculation. We broke out each facility. We did the electrical costs of those sites. We came up with a cost of the power and an assumed cost of maintenance for the sites, and then divided that by the number of accounts served. So we actually have pretty good details per site if we
Okay.
chose to go that direction. So we have that ability. It's just, I think as part of the study, we allowed to do it we wanted to differentiate, especially with Desert Hills, because we were applying, I think it's about 2015 that they went out and said, hey, Desert Hills wasn't being charged boosted rates, and they applied the Cave Creek rate to Desert Hills, and it wasn't justifiable.
Sure.
I'll
Well,
be
and
honest.
that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. I mean, again,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that you, just because somebody lives on a mountain, then you charge them more. That wasn't, it was.
Yeah.
There was a cost associated with it that you said you had identified. And I was asking whether they could be broken down into a separate classification and charged that, which would lower the other people that are sharing that cost today. That's,
Yeah.
whether it's worth it or not, until you do the study, you don't know.
Yeah.
Like it's a big deal.
Well, it's,
That's Desert Hills.
yeah, again, yeah, we're talking, the monthly
Cave
charge
Creek is more
for
like
the 5/8 to
15.
1/8 to 1 inch. Is 65 without a boosted rate, and it's 80/75
Yeah.
or.
But I think we have bigger issues. I think our water, I mean, unless you think that we could save that money, William, I don't know. I just think.
It's just, it was just a question on rate design. That's all.
Okay. So the answer would be right now that there is a possibility.
If
If-
if council chose to go that direction, you know, obviously there's a legal question, which I think could be answered. If the council wanted to do it by pressure zones, by specific, you know, we actually have it broken down that way by the
Okay.
number of accounts. You know, and then some cases, you know, we have booster sites that are meant to feed a number of homes. In one case, I think our Carriage 2 site is actually meant to feed 7 homes. Currently, there's only 2 users on it. So do you charge them the differential rate? And as everybody comes on, you'd have to give them a new rate because effectively someone else is adding to it. So is that something we'd have to factor into it? So the Carriage 2, actually, there is another home being potentially proposed up there. But yeah, we have one booster site feeding 2 properties right now. So it's expensive.
it's-
you know. Yeah.
we're back to Desert.
Okay.
Hill, back over.
Yes, so this is the volume rates for Desert Hills, option A, which is the 6% increases. With the change to the top tier being the 40,000. And and then the next one is, so the first one was residential, this one is commercial. Sometimes it's hard to see where the difference is between the different slides. This one's commercial. And then option B,
I see. Thank you.
And it's the same question I have on that one, is that the commercial over 40 is different. Well, actually, everything is cheaper for commercial. Or not all, not everything, part of it. 6, hard to see there. 5.
so you've got adjustment because there's not a 0 to 4,000 tier in there, so it impacts
Right,
the way that
there you
these
go.
calculate.
But they're cheaper.
Oh.
Commercial, is that our school over there? Is this the school?
No, actually, the school's in its own category. I got the numbers in front of me right now. So, we have 1,842 Desert Hills accounts right now. 3 churches, 14 commercial, 1 irrigation meter, 1,820 residential meters, 1 restaurant and 3 schools.
Okay, so the
That's-
commercial is cheaper, if I'm reading this right. I'm trying to flip from back to back.
Yeah, so we have 14 commercial accounts.
So that's cheaper than your residential.
And what's the nature of the commercial? You know?
Um,
Yeah,
Like
restaurant.
those small businesses, are they restaurants?
there's, you know, there's a couple of restaurants. And again, we only have 1 restaurant because the other commercial out there is actually tied together with other things. We've got like on the south, east corner of 7th Street and Carefree Highway is the mall down there. There's Discount Tire has its own, that's considered commercial. There's a little strip mall directly on 7th, which is its own. And then, but the L-shaped commercial, which actually has a restaurant and a coffee shop and something else, that's actually considered resident or commercial.
Right.
But that's actually one of the higher water users out in Desert Hills. I remember Toscana Estates or Toscana, not Estates, but it's Toscana. Yeah, is the name of that one. So it's just a way that it breaks down again, when we talked about the irrigation meters, like in Cave Creek, we actually, we only have 1 irrigation meter out in Desert Hills that's coded purely as irrigation. In Cave Creek, we actually only have 31. And that's part of a legacy back to when the commercial development, typically a commercial wants to break out its irrigation, so then you can actually separate out, especially your sewer flow. That's not how the Cave Creek water system was developed and or Desert Hills. So they didn't do separate meters. They just said, okay, there's 1 meter. So there's very few. Actually, the 1 irrigation meter that we have out in Desert Hills is actually for where the old Burger King used to be. That Burger King Circle K actually had a domestic meter and a commercial meter. That's the only site that had broken out that way. Otherwise, they just got 1 meter and they just went and did it. So it's hard for us to break that out. So.
Sean, question, do you know how far the city,
Microphone.
sorry, thank you. Hi, Carol Kepler.
Mhm.
How far the city of Phoenix water comes over Carefree Highway? Does it come to 7th Ave?
No, well, actually,
Central?
someone told me that, because if you come on, just past 7th Avenue, on top of the hill, when you go up the top of the hill, there actually, Phoenix has a reservoir booster station. It's actually called their 7A or 7B reservoir site up there. I believe they've got a line that comes down to the park site. So if you go to the park, they actually have Phoenix water coming from that reservoir site, but that service is actually over the other side of the hill. So they don't come over on the east side of the hill. It's actually over the west side. They call it Tremonto. And that's the development that they're serving. That's typically where you'd stop. And we serve to the east side of the hills, but we don't go all the way to the base of the hills. We actually stop. Our last service is about 11th Avenue, I think. 11th. Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of areas there that's actually on private wells.
Okay.
Yeah, on service. But yeah, Phoenix says, I think we found out that they ran a line back to the park. So if you go out to the park, you're actually getting Phoenix water
Right.
stuff there. But there's properties just south of the park. They're not. Actually, they're not even served by us. They're on.
And so they're all just private wells then, all those homes?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
Lot of shared wells over there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, so this rate study was really only intended to be an update. It was not a wholesale reevaluate everything. That is what we're planning on for the next rate study, which should probably be not too long after this one finally is done and goes into effect. And let me at least get a little bit of sleep and then before we move on to another one.
So Sherry, your object is to basically justify the rate increase for February. And then we'll negotiate and talk about what comes next. Is that the idea?
So this is to have an update to the rates because there was definitely things where there was the master plan, the integrated master plan was a big trigger of we need to be able to figure out how we're going to be able to handle all this. And so this was intended to be an update to incorporate some of those increased costs. And so what the intent is we're going to propose to council, don't do like 6 years of increases again, or however many years it was of increases that they did the last time, because we need to do another rate study here real soon. There's no point in putting out all those rate increases and then turning around, because we're going to end up saying you need to rescind the rates that you were going to do for the remainder of the years from the last study and go with this or whatever they choose to do. So,
So you're just wanting to go to 2028.
yes.
Okay. And then what's the difference between option A and option B?
So for Desert Hills, option A is at the 6% revenue increase and
Okay.
option B is at the 10% revenue increase.
Okay.
So this next slide is the residential rates under option B, which is the 10% increase. And then the next one is the commercial rates.
And they're gonna fix that again in September.
Yeah.
Sherry,
And-
I had a comment on the 4,000 gallon rate.
Or
For the 0 to 4,000
Yeah,
for the
I
residential.
like the idea of the incentive. But what I would like is for that to be strictly for people using less than 4,000. And anybody using more than that would just get billed at the regular 0 to 10 rate. So they wouldn't get a lower rate for the first
That's
4,000.
discrimination
How is it?
because you're treating one customer different than another.
sorry.
I don't buy it.
If,
Well, she's going by.
Yeah,
legal things
yeah.
of what's required.
I've been told not only by our attorney here, but I used to work for City of Sedona and got the same answer from the attorney there as well. So
So you can't have a special rate for under 4,000.
That's what she's saying.
well,
No, we do.
we do. It's just everyone gets the first 4,000 gallons at that rate.
All right, that's what I had a problem with.
So if you can come up with a legal argument that will convince the attorneys that it's okay.
But I did.
But it's just a desire to do it that way. It's not.
Well, it's like offering a discount. Instead of a special rate, I will give you this much money off if you keep your usage under this. As far as pricing, there's nothing discriminatory about that.
Well, but
It's
she's
just a
saying
discount.
legally from her past, she's sharing her knowledge. So
I
if you
understand, I
wanna,
understand.
if you wanna buck that, then we gotta buck it up to a different ladder.
Buckaroo.
But it's only 4,000 gallons. It's not like it's
Yeah.
But
a lot.
I like the idea to incent people, who are the low users, but
Yeah.
everybody else, I don't see any reason to give them a break.
But
But
the main reason,
That's what I'm saying.
But they're having such a big increase at their higher amounts that overall they're paying more.
Mhm.
It's not that they're paying less. They're paying a lot more.
Of course,
Yeah.
The more you use the
But
paper-
the reason why we want to do the 0 to 4,000 actually wasn't really triggered by the conservation, because like that's, unless you're like one or two people and
Those are
have
snowbird-
very,
Those are your snowbird homes, right?
it was mainly for those on fixed income, those types of situations that we get a lot of complaints about what the rates are.
Okay.
So this was to create more of a lifeline type tier.
I
But
do
it's not
understand.
based upon financials, which you can also have. A criteria to give a discount. But then there's a whole.
And we do actually have the low,
administrative issue.
yeah, we actually do have a low income program. So if you can
Yeah.
approve it, and I forget the threshold we have.
Yeah, there's-
There actually is eligible. There's only a handful of people that are.
Yeah, there's not very many people on it, and there's been a lot of people that we've suggested that maybe they consider it. But, and I experienced this when I was in Sedona as well. People are proud and don't want to do that and don't want to apply that we often believe would be eligible and it would help them. And then you have people that have sustained wealth, but their fixed income is low enough that they qualify, and they for sure are gonna be out there looking for it. And it's like the people who don't really need it have no problem asking for it. And the people who do, we just see that over and over and over again. So. Okay, so this was the option B, residential for Desert Hills, the 10% revenue increase, and then commercial rates under option B. And so then we move into the volume rates. This is option A. Again, with the top tier at the 40,000. At the top of the chart is winter, the bottom of the chart is summer. Commercial, same thing with the seasonal rates. And then we go into option B with the seasonal rates, which is the 10% revenue increase for Desert Hills. And then we have the commercial, and that says Cave Creek Water. I noticed that earlier, and I'm going to edit that. Actually, I think I already did in the one that's in the council folder. And okay, so on the wastewater rates, so we really didn't change anything in the way the structure is for wastewater. It was really just an update. Residential is at a flat amount. The non-residential is also at a flat amount, but then when you get into commercial, then they have, the non-residential, so that's the base charge. So basically for commercial, anything that's not residential, including commercial. And then the flow rates are based off of the type of business. So there's been studies done that look at what the cost to treat the waste coming out of the different businesses, because for instance, you see the restaurant is up there pretty high, and that's because the cost to treat the waste of restaurants is quite a lot. I don't
They
think, we-
put more stuff into it that we have to treat. Is the-
Yeah. And-
You're clean way of saying it.
and we don't have a brewery category, but they're like the worst.
Yeah, we would have a couple potentially coming in, so we're trying to work with them to do pre-treatment, so.
Your existing rate has an interceptor devices rate, 97.74 per month. I don't see that on this list. Something you're don't.
Yeah, so we have other fees that we're gonna be working on. We've actually had already contracted for it, but as I said, we're drowning in projects. So once this is done, to a point to where we can start moving ahead with that, then we're gonna look at the other fees, because there's all sorts of other fees that we charge in the utilities. A fee for setting up a new account, a fee for reconnecting when you don't pay your bill and you get disconnected, and just all sorts of things.
The way it's listed on your sheet is it's under your volume. It's not as a separate fee and charge. So I was just curious as to.
Yeah.
Whether you were eliminating it intentionally or overlooked it, or I was just concerned that.
Yeah.
If you're actually charging it, if you really wanted, it's on your website.
Could you add a brewery fee? I mean. Could you add?
Well, I know
or
you're
is it
gonna
just-
charge. but-
we
but
will
it's not
eventually
volume.
add
It's
that.
not on that,
No.
but it does say.
Well, it's listed, yeah, it's listed under the base rates, just. before
Yeah,
the
we'll have to
line.
look at it because in the ordinance in 22 and 20, we added it as a separate fee. And then we got an error because we actually charged it volumetrically, which ended up not being fair to all users. So in 22, we changed that back. So it ends up showing up in the wastewater ordinance. We'll have to take a look at that, whether that has to be written in it. They're not changing it because effectively we did that to cover the cost of us having consultant help us manage the program and the cost of running this system. So it hasn't really increased. You know, the number of devices, we've actually done a really good inventory. So we've actually increased the number of devices in the system, but the cost of running the program hasn't really changed. So there's no need to change that one, but we can take a look at that.
And that's fine. I guess my concern more was whether somebody's gonna argue you've eliminated the charge because you're not.
Not pointing it out,
Not-
yeah,
not-
because I think it does show up in the
not-
old ordinance, so it might be
If
good to
it's
show it.
not
yeah.
under your miscellaneous fees, it's under your
Mhm.
rates and charges.
Yeah.
And it's not being listed here. And
Good
if
point.
you-
I
if
think
you
it shows
really
up in the
want
rate
to keep
ordinance.
it, So it's
Yeah.
not, there's not an issue. I don't know how many people you have on it. I assume.
You could
it's-
It's in the
add
wastewater rate
Add
ordinance.
something, a
Yeah.
star,
Page 2.
noting what it
Yeah.
said.
So it's not eliminating it unless we say we're eliminating it. But yeah. Okay, so in the October 15th meeting, we gave a calculation of a water resource fee that would be $3.27 per 1,000 gallons. We decided to also look at what if it was a fixed amount within the tiers. So here's an option of as opposed to the $3.27, here's what it would be within the tiers.
Interesting.
So definitely going up a lot. And we added more tiers here because to put more pressure on those who are using significant amounts
Okay.
of water.
And this is the fee we were talking about that's going towards new water.
Yes.
Yes.
Does the town have, or have they considered, for new connections, a water fee?
I think they have. but I
Yeah,
haven't
we have a
looked at that.
capacity charge that
It-
was just updated in 22.
It's been a discussion now that we know what's happening with water resources. That has been some discussion. That'd be a separate study because in 22, we did both studies concurrently. We had one report that wrapped both together. So we have to do another one. But now that we're really honing in on what the cost of water resources will be. What this fee is looking at is the cost of water resources, because as of 27, we're in a shortage situation even for existing customers. So that fee is helping us cover that cost. And then as far as new customers coming on board, the thought being that we have to go through a capacity fee study to actually develop a new capacity fee. So we have a water capacity fee, which is really based on the infrastructure of the system, and then we create a new water resource capacity fee, but we have to go through the fee study to do that. So that's one discussion that's come out of this this update, was that, yeah, we should follow up quite quickly with that capacity fee study and get that put on the books.
Good, the water resource fee that, or cost that you're looking at, really necessary for existing customers.
It
I
is.
realize there's a segment of it.
It is.
100% allocated for,
Yeah,
if you have conservation and you have the other things, if you just need all of that resource.
Yeah.
We're still short if we look at those.
yeah, the base numbers are
Well, it
in
is.
27. We think we have a 3 to 5 year solution in place right now with getting access to our storage credits, reactivating some of the Cave Creek wells and some other stuff. But assuming a 25, what we have to assume, because they haven't told us what it is, a 25% cut in the town's municipal and industrial CP allocation. And that we won't get any of the NIA water that we get next year. We actually can't order any of it. We are short for existing customers by about 300 acre feet in 27. We can make that up with our storage credits, but that's a 3 to 5 year solution. So our thought is we really need to start paying for that. And the existing customers actually are paying some of it. There'll be a bigger share put on new customers. And that's why we need to go to a capacity fee model to actually develop that.
I had a thought on the water resource fee. Is you're basically paying for every gallon that's used. I think a cost per gallon would be the most fair way of distributing that. So if somebody who's buying 150,000 gallons, you'd pay $3.27 a gallon on all of that.
Well, that's what
Like
they
1,000
proposed
per
originally,
thousand.
and then this alternative, like the alternative, that as you use more, it's actually.
So they just.
I'm
they
just
made-
weighing in that, it's really a variable cost. When you're trying
That's
to,
what they made it very, I mean, that's what they did. So this is
that's a fixed cost.
Yeah, but it's, if I use 4,000, it's
Similar.
$3, times 4 is close to that. So they just took the $3 and times it out by your high.
No, that's not how it was done.
Well, tell me how it was done then. That's what it. your math
So,
figures
so
out.
when you do a rate study, you put like factors in,
Right.
and
but
then you
you're
use
thinking-
those factors for each one of the tiers to do the calculation. So if you do the $3.27 times the 10,000 gallons, then that would be
$32.
$32.70. This is
so it's a little less,
26.25.
But it's,
Yes,
okay.
these are close
close.
approximations of about midpoint of the range.
Okay, yeah. So what you're wanting is, do you want the $3.25 per thousand, no matter what? So if I use 7,000, it's not gonna be my 26, is that what you're saying?
I think that would be more fair.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what council says, but this was a request to provide a scenario like this.
Yeah.
to
I mean, this is
consider.
an option, but I think that the one that allocates that money, every gallon that's
It's
purchased
per thousand gallons. It's
per
not.
1,000 gallons.
It's per
well,
thousand,
It's
because it's 327 per thousand.
per 1,000 gallons,
Yeah.
but it's also on every gallon that people consume,
Okay, that's,
they're getting charged.
We're just, that's measured by that.
Yeah.
That's what.
okay.
Right.
That's.
Phoenix
So-
does it in cubic feet, so really messes you up.
So you're
Okay.
saying an option is per thousands instead of they came up with, and how did you define how you came up with that? Because it was a average.
It's a midpoint.
the mid-
No, it wasn't. It was based off of factors.
Okay, factor.
They're kind of close to midpoint, the way it turned out,
Okay.
but they're based off of setting factors
Okay.
of impact of the different tiers.
Okay,
Okay, so these are the same sample customers that I had used in the October 15th work session with some updated information here. So this is looking at the top tier at 40,000 gallons with seasonal rates. So this is the winter rates. So the low usage customer would see a 3% increase in their bill. The water resource fee, so at the $3.27 per 1,000 gallons was $8. The fixed tiers would put them at $7.50.
Okay.
And then
so the fixed tiers is less
some-
if you go to your
I
high.
think when I was looking for sample customers, I think only one of these, I forget which one, is on wastewater. But wastewater increase is going up $5 compared to what it is, the 6%.
Okay.
The average usage customer, so that one is at a little over 13,000 gallons a month, would see a 4% increase in the comparison on their bill, but then the water resource fee at the $3.27 per 1,000 gallons is $44, and the fixed tiers, it would be $39.
And that's winter.
The high usage customer would see a 17% increase, and with the fixed tiers would pay higher in the water resource fee compared to the per gallon amount. And the very high usage customer would see a 19% increase, but would temper it with the fixed tiers at the $562 if it was a tier instead of per gallon. And then comparison with the summer rates. So the low usage customer would not see a difference in their bill. The average usage would be slightly different, not a lot, 4% increase. High usage customer would see 21% increase, and the very high usage customer would see 24% increase. The next slide, so for Desert Hills, this is the option A with the 6% revenue increases. This is winter rates. So the low usage customer, primarily due to the reduction in the base amount because the sample, because I had a hard time trying to find ones who weren't on boosted in Desert Hills. So they would actually see a decrease in their bill of 7%. The average usage customer would see a 2%, and the high usage customer would see a 1% increase in winter. In summer, the low usage would see a 7% decrease. The average user would see 1% increase and the high usage customer would see a 9% increase.
Why don't they have a water resource fee? Am I missing it?
So the water resource fee is on Cave Creek, but it's built into, and we're not at the rates yet for the bulk water, but it's built into the costs for the bulk water sales that Cave Creek Water sells to Desert Hills Water.
We're already paying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Mhm.
And then if you go back when you went back to Cave Creek, and let's just say the average use customer, so 13,625, you said it's 4% increase, but that did not include the water resource fee, is that correct?
Right, because that would be a new fee. The 4% was comparing the existing comparison of what they're paying now to the same rates. So it's slight increase there, but with the water resource fee, and I mean, I feel pretty certain the council's gonna want to do the water resource fee, but
And is that?
That would be in
average
addition
use
to.
Customers, is this are we using, I could go back and look, but are we using 2026 fees there, the $20.28?
Yes. Yeah,
So these are 2026 figures
correct.
on this page. Need
Correct.
to add that to the top of these pages. Okay,
So fiscal year 26 is year one of the rate increases.
gotcha.
So that's what the proposed fund
So
is year one.
So you don't have an additional line below, which if we add the water resource fee, what the increase will be for 2026?
In total, yeah, no, I don't, but
You probably should,
I think
It-
Kent, one of the council members asked you for that. That's.
because that's
Yeah.
gonna be, change things. Because it doesn't even match the 6% or the 10% right now, the way it's presented. In my opinion, unless you then do another calculation below it saying total increase including water resource fee is this much for our average customer.
Yeah, just another line item on your calculation.
Might-
Easy, it's easy. That's in Excel.
do you know how hard it was to try and get this at least somewhat legible and fit on the screen?
Well, that needs to be brought up in the meeting, Sean. John. Needs to be brought up in the
But I
meeting,
could tell, if I was at the council, I'd want to see that
but I mean, it needs, because
total
that's,
picture.
it's a little deceiving if you just glance at the page and not really take time. It's saying, oh, it's only 4%, but as we know, that's not quite right. So we just need to be clear because then we're gonna hear from, all your customers when all this comes on. And let's be very, and if we need to tell them, you just paid $44 a month more, for new water, so you have water in 5 years. I mean, we need to be honest with people and say why we're doing this. Because that's a big increase. If you add that to what we're just doing, and that's why it's not here.
No, it was because of room and because it's additional and it's an option, it's not a
It's
guarantee.
not really, but it's an option
Mhm.
that has been talked about a lot and there's a big need because now they just committed more money or wanting to spend the 11+ million for the 500 acre feet. So this is not really, I mean, they voted on it and so it's not really an option as much anymore because it's on the table.
But we do have rates that say if we don't charge a fee and we just continue to rely on general fund subsidy.
Right, and that needs to be on here too. So I think this should say, if you're not gonna include this, then get it off the page totally. Make a new page that says this is with that option. And this is what
But
the
that's what
option
that is,
of
that
water
4%. That's what that 4% is.
Okay. I just think it needs to be very clear for the,
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm fine,
Yeah.
fine. I will add it. I'll stay later. Even I need to work several more hours tonight. And I have a very, very early morning, so
no, and I appreciate everything you do, and I'm sure you're overworked, and I agree. I just am saying that we just need to, if that's going to the council, and it is a huge, big increase that is kind of just sitting here, that's all,
Yes.
that's all. And
Yes.
I'm thinking of the other people coming at everybody when this gets in, because It's a little deceiving, and unless you're really talking to people and understand why we're charging this per month on top of the bill, people aren't gonna understand that. They're gonna.
Oh,
it's gonna be-
there's gonna need to be a lot of outreach regardless
Yeah.
on all of this. And that's standard of what the town has done is to do outreach
That's like a 40%.
when there's a
35%.
increase.
I mean, I can run some numbers myself, but I'm just doing it in my head. Cause you're adding $44 to 65. So instead of 65 a month, I'm paying 100. So yeah, it's actually 44% or, a big increase. So. That's all.
And the resource fee is the 327 or the fixed tiers, is it versus or it's both?
No, they're two different options that are being
Okay, that's
presented.
Right.
That's what I thought, but I just, wait. Or,
So we talked about,
That was winter. Then
so option A, we talked about option A for Desert Hills, so going to option B in the winter time. So this is the 10% increases. And so the low usage customer would see instead of 6% decrease, the average usage would be about flat. The high usage customer at a 2% increase. On the summertime rates, the low usage customer would stay the same. The average usage customer would see 2%. The high usage customer would see 10% increase. The next one is the bulk water rates for Desert Hills. And so the NIA water, which is going to be going away anyway. But the rate, just in case that we do have NIA water available at some point, would be 23% increase. The M&I water is a 21% increase.
And it's the community understand, is to understand, I think we talked about that before, the different priority waters of CAP Colorado River subcontracts that we do have, so. The NIA is something that we were able to secure about 5 years ago, but yeah, at this point, it's variable. Next year, we can't order any of it. If there's a good wet winter, we might be able to get some, but it's not reliable year after year, but. The thought is that in Desert Hills, they're paying that base fee for that. There's an ongoing capital charge and delivery charges that's built into the Desert Hills budget. And this is the cost for the Cave Creek water system to treat and deliver that water on their behalf. If they have to buy extra water of our municipal industrial supply, they have to pay a higher tier for that M&I water is paid out of the Cave Creek budget. That's how it's differentiated. That's why they're different.
So-
rates.
Who pays the bulk water rate? Just standby users or?
No,
No.
it's spread amongst all the customers.
So
Please.
it's a charge to the Desert Hills Water Company that becomes a cost of Desert Hills that then is spread out in the
Is
rates.
that per bill or per thousand? It's unclear to me what you're charging.
Yeah, I forgot, was it per acre feet?
Well, I know, yeah, because right now it's budgeted, it's about $1.5 million in the base budget, so it's as far as how it's distributed, that's a good question. I can't remember how we distributed it among either each account or how we do it. That's a good question. I don't know. I can't remember how we did it. I know how we built it. And I know how it shows up in Desert Hills as a charge, and then it shows up as a revenue in Cave Creek Water. I just can't, it's a good question.
It's charged to the Desert Hills Company account.
Yeah, I know that. It's just how does it get distributed?
The customers.
I'm not sure if we did it on.
It's just a cost in the model that is spread like all the other costs.
Okay. So.
Oh, you know what, actually, because then the rate model, actually, now that I think about it, that's another cost that in Kevin's model would actually just look at it and distribute that amongst the users, whether he's doing it
It's
for proportionality.
covered in the A or B. It's
Yes.
not a separate charge. That's what I'm.
No, yeah, it's not on top of that, yeah.
Okay,
Right, those incorporate these cost
Yeah.
increases.
so,
It's a separate cost fee that we're breaking out specifically to help highlight that difference. But it's built into the base budgets that are being accounted for in these base fees.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
if that's a better way of now, yeah.
But as far, it's not a rate that is charged to anybody who pays it. It's in the model.
Correct.
Yes.
We charge it to the
Yes.
two different funds. It's just the ones, and then,
Yeah. It's only charged to the Desert Hills Water Company customer.
Now, and But they do have a standpipe over there, right?
We've got 2 customers on it.
And that, are they big customers? Cause that, to me, standpipes when we're having water shortages is an issue of. You gotta make sure you're covering that cost if you're gonna continue to have it. And.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about your standpipe customers, so
Yeah.
it's just.
So these are standby pipe
Standpipe.
customer? Yeah, so it's like a,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're hauled
Piper.
water. It's so, both water, actually, I don't think Cape Creek might have had one, but no, Desert Hills actually, it started as actually a standpipe system. So they actually had their well, the reservoir booster station on 10th Street. And then people would come up and actually bring their haul trailer or
Right.
have someone.
I remember.
Yeah, that's actually how Desert Hills started. And then they started adding distribution lines, to provide actual services to customers. So a few years ago, we had, I think when I first started 6 years ago, we only had like 25 customers on the system. And then it sort of started, as we started to go through our rate increases, people stopped using us because they were finding other options. Another option out there is actually EBCOR actually has a standpipe that they allow people to get hauled water service from that's cheaper than ours. But you actually can only use the EBCOR standpipe if your home is built up between a certain time period.
yeah.
So that's one thing that we lost some customers to. And then we actually had a problem with the equipment about 4 years ago. And the direction we got from council is, instead of investing the time, we had 12 customers on the system, investing 40, it was going to cost us $40,000 to update the system, trying to spread that out over the customers. We said, no, we weren't going to do that. We went to a subscription base where they'd call in and basically say, I'll be here at a certain time and haul it. And then through that, we've gone down to 2 customers that are still using it. They just occasionally bring a trailer. It's 2 homes that use a very little water. They come by with a trailer occasionally.
And you're saying this bulk water is what you're talking about?
No, that's
Oh.
different. The bulk water is the charges between the 2 water companies.
Okay,
Yeah.
So Cave Creek Water sells water to Desert Hills
Right.
Water.
right. And
That's
then-
what this is for.
Okay,
It doesn't really, it just isn't a model. There's nobody writing a check for it. It's just an accounting recognition of a cost that gets built in.
Correct.
They are a customer set up in our utility billing system.
But then they spread that cost.
Amongst
you know,
all the
in
users.
rate. And when they design the rate, that cost gets recovered in the rates. So it's not a separate cost that gets paid directly. It's just a cost that's.
No, not by individual customers, but it's our way of attributing the fact that Desert Hills was a water system that didn't have sustainable water resources. And since being purchased by Cave Creek Water, 2/3 up to 2/3 of the water in Desert Hills is coming from Cave Creek. Without that water, those customers would be out of water service. That's a way of attributing the cost between the 2 systems.
And we're talking about standpipes for a second, or did you have do you allow construction water for fire hydrants? and
Yes, we
there's a
do.
separate rate on that?
Yeah, and there's actually, it shows up in there, not in the rate schedule here, it shows up as a fee. So it's actually adopted by a resolution by a fee, which is another thing that we'll be looking at. Right now, we do need to increase that. That's part of the fee study that Sherry indicated too, that we've got to get back after this rate study. So it's not showing up in the rates, it's a separate fee. A lot of jurisdictions will charge like just double the base rate or set something else completely independently of that. And then right now, we do need to raise, because the base rate's actually too low on the monthly fee for those meters. So we need to increase that base and the volumetric, but those are done by a separate resolution, actually.
Okay, well, because it should also include a water resource component.
Yeah, we go back to
as
doing
the
that
bigger
one, we
one,
can do that,
because
but
it's
since it's not part of
great.
their current rate ordinances, we thought we do that separately. And the rate ordinances are in town code, where that was a resolution as a separate fee, is how we did fire hydrant meters.
Yeah.
okay, sorry, can I ask, sorry, and I don't know, Sherry, if you're, or should I ask you, Sean, but okay, so the bulk rate is included in, I'm a residential customer in Desert Hills, so I'm paying, $52.40 plus, my rate
no,
is
no,
going up,
No,
so yeah.
it's built into that rate, because all of these rates.
Yeah,
We're looking at what are the costs of Desert Hills? The
Mhm.
cost of Desert Hills includes paying for bulk water.
okay,
And so we look at those costs and then we calculate, okay, what are rates to cover the costs? So this is what it takes to cover this and all the other cost increases.
Except that Desert Hills historically has not been covering 100% of their costs.
Yeah, they've been relying on general fund loans.
Which we're trying to wean them on.
right. But I thought, yeah, we were paying our loan, weren't we? Desert Hills paying, I mean, that's what that is. And when I see the budget, they charge us and we pay it, right? So we've been paying for it, have we not?
As at a fund level, you'll see when we do our operational budgets, it shows up as a line item.
Yeah,
But then again, as they're saying, it's built in as a user, you actually get, that's built into your fee, but as a, it's like an operation, like if I was had, you know, if I was running the water system out there, we have separate electric bills. The bulk water rate is like the electric bills for running Desert Hills water system. It gets spread amongst all the users.
Mhm.
It's because they didn't have the water resources, and for them to keep water in the pipes out there, Cave Creek needs to send water out to them, and they're
right.
using the town's water resources or we're treating.
But wasn't that when they bought the company, they knew they had to do that, right? I mean,
Yeah, and
it's
what they
nothing
get,
new,
honestly, until we set this rate at 22, they were just being charged at the highest tier rate,
right?
which was,
And we had the wells,
Well, you had four.
Yeah.
You don't have four anymore.
right, right.
we actually only ever had three.
I thought,
because,
yeah, only three.
Well, number one was never operational, actually never got transferred with the purchase. It was only 2, 3, and 4. So we only ever had 3 wells out there, and the
We don't have
those
to
wells
say,
have, yeah,
you
dropped.
gotta get to the note.
Yeah, yeah. This was a way, yeah, it's part of the logic is, when we bought the water company, when Kate, there were actually, one of the logic reasons before, after they did water purchase. When Cave Creek actually, went through and after it got purchased, they went through a project to actually improve the water treatment plant, improve the Neary site and do some other improvements. Part of that cost was actually directly attributed to Desert Hills they actually had a loan that they
Right.
paid directly.
Right. that's
So
what I'm
moving
remembering.
forward, we said, let's not do that logic. Cape Creek pays for that. We charge them instead of doing 2 different loans. Because there used to be 2 separate loans for WIFA for the improvements that were done to the water treatment plants in 2007 and 2008. This breaks that model, and that we did in 22 saying, that's logically doesn't make sense. At Cape Creek infrastructure, we're charging them for use of that infrastructure. And the fact that our system is reliable to provide them water.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Okay, Nancy, I'm gonna go back. So I've done some calculations and we're proposing with the water resource fee, a 78% increase. Average usage customer. That's why it's not on here.
No, it's because it hasn't even been calculated.
I calculated. Okay?
Yeah, but,
So-
but I didn't put it,
So
not
I'm
put it
just
on
not-
there because of the
Again,
rate.
I think you did an excellent job. This is just for talking, because I think what you've done is amazing. Okay, I'm just saying that this is going to council. And I did my calculations and I figured out how she came up with her 4%. I figured out how she came up with her 17%. I backed in and figured it. So the average customer this year, $61. This is our average usage customer, and this is winter. Okay, we can do either one. And then if we add, which we need to do, I'm not saying we don't need to do this. I just think we need to really look at the real numbers here. And see, this is not 6% increase, this is not 10. This is 78% increase when we add the water resource fee. Now I use the higher one. So if we lower it a little bit, let's just say it's 70. But I just think we need to make sure our numbers, we understand these numbers, and the council needs to understand. Once they add this water resource fee at a full fee for 26. That might be something they need to consider, either like a ramping scale. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, full disclosure.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
You gotta do that.
Yeah, so. Like I said, I think you did an excellent job. There's nothing,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing.
There-
against you.
There was nothing nefarious in what I did at
No,
all.
exactly. And I'm
so-
not ever insinuating that at all. I'm just bringing out
But that's
some
what you said.
calculations. Then I apologize,
Thank
because
you.
that was not meant how, if I said it, that was improper, and I did not mean it that way. I'm just saying that we as the committee and Sean and Ryan we need to do our calculations here for the town council.
If you have 2 more slides that you want to get through, and then. we can
Yes,
just use
yes.
you and-
Thank you.
Go.
So, this one is looking at the water bills in comparison to some of the other entities. So, there were, certain municipalities that, had been used as comparisons in the past. And so the consultant used those same ones, but then we also added, a couple others. So, we had added Paradise Valley, and we had added, Fountain Hills. And then in this one, he also even added, since the October 15th, he added Wickenburg on there as well. So you can see from this that where we're at on the right-hand side of the chart is our rates are substantially higher than most of these other municipalities and water companies. There are a couple in here that are serve those municipalities, but are actually private water companies. They have economies of scale in this. I don't know, Sean would probably say that there's a lot of things that need to be done with the systems because what we inherited was not the best conditions. So there's some element of that, you know, maybe their conditions of their systems aren't the same as what the conditions of ours are. So they're showing in here, so after Fountain Hills, you can see what the current rate is, and this is assuming a customer at 11,000 gallons, which is an average use. Where we are with current, then looking at seasonal rates, and then you'll see Carefree in there. So Carefree is kind of in a similar type situation of being very high. And then you start looking at Desert Hills, and then the Cave Creek ones with adding the water resource fee and what those totals would be. And then you have the two different options with Desert Hills, option A and option B with the summer and the winter. So we dominate the right side of the chart. So at the high end, it would be Desert Hills with the option B of the 10% increases in the summertime. For an average customer, 11,000 gallons would be about $145 a month. Looking at the sewer bills, so we, again, for residential, it's a just a fixed rate for all the sewer customers. And again, looking at some of those other ones that have been compared to in the past, adding in Fountain Hills to the comparison and Paradise Valley. And so we are, again, at the right-hand side of the chart.
Sherry, this is a idea, and I know it involves taxes, which is not a word we talk about in this town, but if you were to put the sewer costs in property taxes and give them the opportunities to deduct that on their taxes, is that a viable option?
That would involve customers, the residents of Town Creek voting to do that.
Okay.
Because we
Well,
couldn't just do a property tax just because we want to. It requires a vote of
Understood.
the citizens in order to be able to do that. How likely is somebody willing to vote for something when they don't even get a benefit from it? I couldn't tell you. Because that's likely what it would take, is having enough people who aren't even on the system to vote for it. Because there's so few accounts.
Yeah, that would be difficult.
Mhm.
No new taxes.
Yeah, so also just to keep in mind, so
I think
back to the water and how significant we are. And on the sewer, how significant we are in comparison to the others. And this also still involves having general fund subsidies. Whereas a lot of these other ones don't have general fund subsidies to their utilities.
But are they in better shape? Is their water system newer or in better condition where they don't need
Or
it
having
much?
been maintained at a better level for many, many years, or, you know,
Okay.
yeah, there's probably some of those
Maintenance and
elements.
construction, again, honestly, a lot of it, a lot of the issues we see in the distribution system is because they'd save it for construction.
Right.
Pipes weren't bedded properly, put directly on caliche and they break.
Yeah.
So, that's an inherent flaw in the way the system was.
Wasn't
built.
shaded, they weren't shaded.
Yeah, it wasn't shaded. And we have issues, and we have a very spread out system,
Right.
except around the town core, it's actually, the typical lot is 2 to 5 acres. And it's just, and there's a lot of cases we have on the extremities, we have large cost and booster stations to feed up there. And it's a large spread out system. And we have a small number of customers.
Mhm.
2,500 customers in Cave Creek and 1,900 customers in Desert Hills. It's not a lot to spread that cost out to. If we had
Yep.
more customers, it would help. Why, it did hurt when we lost the 550 Carefree customers. So that was 18% of our customer base that went away.
Thank you, Sherry.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So much for all your
Thank
work.
you.
Sherry, before you go,
Yes.
I just have one comment I'd like to leave with you, just for further thought. Over the years, there's been some issues, let's call it under the category of errors and omissions. That the council has made various decisions that have cost the town a lot of money involving water. There's a argument to say that that should not fully be borne by the water customers. That should be borne by the town. Because it was a town council that made that decision. And that's the justification that I would use to continue water subsidies for the town. And I don't have any way of calculating how much that would be or how long that should go on. But I want to just communicate that to you for thought going down the road. Because I'm kind of new to the town. I moved here in 2017, but I saw several instances where, you know, mistakes were made. And I don't want to blame, you know, but it's errors and omissions. It happens. You know, and because of that, you know, should the water customers have to pay the full bill? And I say no.
I get where you're coming from. And as I had said earlier on, we are in a position where we really need to eliminate the subsidies, or the other alternative is to increase revenues. So increasing sales tax rates or whatever, and that would be very hefty. And then how much of that would then actually decrease our revenues because people avoiding coming to Cave Creek and spending their money? I don't know.
Well, I offered that as just an item that I think needs to be discussed, you know, going forward. You want to get off the subsidies in the next 3 years, and, you know, that's a noble cause, but, you know, is that really fully justified?
And you're saying we have to do that because we don't have the extra money. Am I hearing you right? After that time?
Correct. So financially, we are not in a position to really be able to afford these. So you probably, most people don't come to the budget work sessions. But so you may not have heard when I went through and said, okay, we look at the structural balance of the general fund of what are the ongoing revenues, what are the ongoing costs, and those need to be balanced. And those for sure can be covered and be balanced and be able to cover some of the other needs. But we are very heavily out of balance when you look at some of the other things like the general fund subsidies going to the utilities,
Right.
that it's bringing down our reserve.
Yes.
Because of how substantial those subsidies are.
I
And so if we continue with these substantial subsidies, it will drain those reserves fairly quickly.
Okay.
And I think, Robert, you brought up possibly the idea of somehow getting more customers on that wastewater treatment plant, somehow maybe contracting with the city of Phoenix to bring in.
That was just
to-
brainstorming and, you know, Sherry, I don't know if that's, you know, for you, or if you want to excuse yourself, but it's certainly for Sean and for Ryan. You know, it's kind of a few future ideas on what we can do. I'll just
Get
mention
some
it quickly.
revenue there.
We have the growth that's happening by the Taiwan Semiconductor plant. It's going to grow the entire region. You know, and if Phoenix grows as well as we grow, you know, the potential for maybe tapping into Phoenix growth on the south side of Carefree Highway into the sewer system. If there's development that goes on there, you know, is that something we can do? Can we share the wastewater? You talked about that before, Sean. There might be an option for, you know, getting onto the system there. And just looking, you know, going forward, you know, if we should at least broach that with our surrounding communities, you know, as a way of utilizing the resources that exist today.
Yeah, if I could talk about briefly, because, you know, we actually had discussions we've had with Phoenix are about, you know, we have an imbalance with when we produce effluent from that plant, and then we deliver it to our Richmond on a golf course as it's applied to them. So we tried to get that looked at. So I had a really good discussion with Phoenix. Phoenix is actually starting to convert, ironically, their Cave Creek treatment plant, which is at Deer Valley Road, and Cave Creek Road is their wastewater treatment plant to bring it back online. They're converting it to a direct potable reuse, a direct potable water supply plant. They're spending $45 million on that plant. We've had a conversation with them. So, you know, there's south of Carefree Highway is pretty much, there's some county islands still down there. There's some unincorporated areas. They're on septic. You know, do we try and extend sewer down there? There's probably not that many accounts. We do have the 3 neighborhoods directly adjacent to the treatment plant that actually have dry sewers, But just the cost of bringing in the trunk sewer to get those converted, I think for all three sewers, it shows up in the capital program, it's $7+ million.
Right.
And
they
that's
have
not
to
even getting the
agree, right?
cable
They
connected.
have to agree, because then they're having a monthly fee.
Yeah.
Once they connect.
Yeah, in fact, the
No
way
way.
I brought up the council meeting is that current code is that they don't have to discontinue service right now if they're a residential customer who has an active functioning septic system.
Okay.
Town code used to say, actually, if there's any sewer within 300 feet of your property
You have to
line,
use
you
it.
have to connect.
Okay.
That got adjusted. So when the town bought the sewer system in 1993, then built improvement district number 2, which was 95 through 2010, the new ID went online, the new treatment plant went online. It was actually the code at the time that actually everybody needed to connect. Then that got written out of code. So I brought that up to council. If we truly want to get more wastewater customers on, we actually have to take a hard look at that discussion. And then you have to incentivize to the customers. Now,
Right.
what is your cost? Now you have to decommission that septic system. You have to potentially go into the streets and
bet.
connect. So there's a lot
Fees
to
that you
that.
had listed.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as the Phoenix, around TMC, that's Phoenix's area. They actually just did a large trunk sewer. I think it was like 36-inch diameter all the way down from State Road 303 south, actually into their facility to get their trunk sewer out of that area.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
So the town.
It's to
you know,
kind
I-
of help
I-
the journal entries.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending to the information, really.
I'm listening.
Yeah, on the wastewater side, it's always good. And actually, the prior mayor brought this attention to my attention several years ago. Why did the town invest so much money in the wastewater treatment plant? We had two issues that sort of hit the town at the same time, just before 2010. The existing plant that they had in Rancho Manana needed a major upgrade. It actually was derated because of the strength of the wastewater loading. So they thought they had a 250,000 gallon a day facility. It was derated by the state. So all of a sudden, they thought they had a 20-year plus lifespan of that facility. It got shortened down to a couple of years because they were at capacity because it got derated. They had to make a decision, do we invest in that plant? And at the same time, they had discussions on what was going to happen on Carefree Highway, and Phoenix does not have sewer services along Carefree Highway. So it's either for the town to get that, we needed to invest down there. So the numbers I've heard is that while we're spending about $1 million in debt service to pay for the treatment plant that was built down there on the loans and running the wastewater lines down there, that allowed the town to generate $4+ million in sales tax revenue from Walmart initially. And now that's gone up as we've now brought other development on down there. So the time that was the decision that was made in before 2010 to say, we're going to move the plant down there. We have to deal with a permitting issue. That plant was at capacity, it needed to be rebuilt or we relocate it. And they chose to relocate it to get development along Carefree Highway. It was built larger than they probably should have because they were anticipating the dry sewers were going to be brought in soon afterwards, but because that project was so expensive, they weren't able to do that. And they were also anticipating some development actually happening out to the west side. It was part of the state land was being, that's when state land they call it the core site, which is the commercial core. They thought that was going to go fairly soon. And there was discussions with extending the line actually out into Desert Hills because there was actually a sewer improvement district that was being discussed about being formed in Desert Hills at the time. So at the time they built that plant, they had the best planning numbers they had, and they decided to build a plant that's permitted 660,000 gallons a day of incoming flow. They didn't have that flow. At the time they moved the plant, it was less than 150,000 gallons a day, and now we're up to 180 as the average, just under 200,000 gallons. So they designed it based on what they thought was going to happen, and it didn't happen, and it was an expensive plant to build, but they've shaved it off probably a little bit, but not much. A lot of that plant construction is actually the pipelines, the force main that we had to build all the way down Cave Creek Road, the sewer line on Carefree Highway and all that side of it. The plant itself, could we have shaved it a little bit? Maybe a little bit, but not much. You built them in sections, and it's actually there's a few things they could have done differently, but it's hard to look at backwards. Wastewater is always going to have an issue, until we get more customers on it,
Right.
and or we abandon that and say, okay, we're going to send it all to Phoenix. But then we have to meet our obligation because that wastewater effluent, the treated effluent, actually is obliged to Rancho Manana through 2049. That's the contractual obligation. When we move that plant down there, the contract was still in place that they get the effluent unless we can supplement them with
pump it
another
in.
water supply.
Yeah.
So if we go send the water to Phoenix, and we thought about this, then how do I make up the 210 acre feet of effluent that we generate a year to Rancho Manana? I'm short. So it's a balancing act. You know, and then that arrangement dates back to when the Rancho Mignon development built, because they built the first sewer system. You know, they built it in Rancho Mignon for that Rancho Mignon, the 74 lot, 70 or 86 lot development up there actually had its own wastewater treatment plant, and the resort had its own wastewater treatment plant. That was Cave Creek Sewer Company. That's what the town purchased in 1993. So we get this legacy of all these issues tied together. So it's always good discussions, always good to look at stuff, but you know, then you got, I always have to think back, like the lens of why did they do that? You know, good or bad, it was the best decision at the time. You know, now we're trying to make the best decisions moving forward, and it's scary and expensive. You know, we did the integrated master plan and we came up with a fairly healthy capital program. But you look back in 2007, after buying the system, the town did a master plan, and it at the time had identified $40+ million worth of improvements to the water system. They went ahead and they did $16 million of that at the time, went to the treatment plant. All the rest of it, if you actually factor in inflation, a new capital program is less than what they had proposed back in 2007. And all the improvements that were necessary for the system. We haven't been able to keep up with it. And partly because should the rates have been increased more regularly? Yes. But you know, a lot of jurisdictions ran into that same problem. Again, not too many jurisdictions lose 18% of their customer base, which is what we lost when Carefree took their customers. So it's stuff like that we've had to address. So there's some structural challenges the town needs to deal with, you know, and I think the rate study, you know, there's some tweaking we could do. The one thing I'm excited about when we do it again is we now have, with the new meters that we have in Cave Creek, you know, we are better accounting for the water, where it's going, because, you know, we had a lot of deficient meters in the system that were under reporting. Now we're properly reporting it. And with the new AMI metering system, we have over 60% of our customers. We have really good tight data as far as not only monthly, but we can get down to daily and weekly usage of people. So that will allow us in the next study to think about things a little differently too. So that'll help out. So it's a hard little system to run because of just. Yeah.
You're doing a great job.
If the summer winter rates went into effect, do you think it would help enough on your peak usage that it would actually save you money? Operation?
My honest opinion?
Yeah.
I think we'll have some people that it'll impact, but a lot of customers will say, I just have to use more water in summer. It's just shifting we're generating that revenue during the summer, because when Sherry brought that up, is, you know, it was not to add to the revenue, it was basically distributing it a little bit more, and the goal was to try and limit our peaks in the summer. I think it'll help a little bit, but not significantly. It's like our conservation outreach, you know, I think it will help. Raising the rates has been helpful. You know, we've been, this is the third rate study I've been through since I've been with the town. 2020 was a big lift to do that. And if people might not remember, on the wastewater side, we did I think it was 50% rate increase on the wastewater side. So we went from, you know, $47 a month to 89 or something like that. That was a pretty big, hefty increase. Actually, percentage wise, almost 100%. So, and we did get a lot of pushback on our customers at that, then the 2021. You know, we learned a lesson, because that rate study hit in the September bills in the middle of the summer when people were at their high rates. So they all of a sudden went from what they were used to, you know, significantly higher, and we really spread out the tier cost on that. So we've learned that lesson. Don't do a rate increase during the summer. So, and that's why Sherry's trying to get this done before next spring, so that we can get it in effect before the current ones come effect every January. This one will be pushed out, I think, till March, just on the timing to get through the study. They have to actually do a notice of intent. They have to have 90 days. They have to do 2 public hearings. So that's the next step. So this isn't a done deal at this point, but this is the best we have, getting towards that notice of intent that could be issued to start the clock.
Will the council
statutorily.
vote on this?
Yes, they have
Okay.
to actually authorize it. And it actually has to go through two formal public hearings once the notice of intent is put out.
So they're not voting on it until after that time?
Yeah, because it has to go through them. It's like a code change. You have to
Well,
change here twice.
They will tentatively approve a rate to put out to hearing.
On November
Yeah.
4th or?
Yes.
Okay,
If they choose to go forward. I mean,
Yeah.
the process is the council will approve
One of
Tentatively.
these, one of
Well,
these?
or whatever they approve. Before they go to hearing,
Yeah.
they have to approve a proposed rate structure. It is.
Okay, so we have multiple in here, so they have to pick,
Well, they could technically have a proposal that has multiple options in it.
okay,
That,
Mhm.
that's not usually how it's done, but it
Okay.
could be. But yes, they will have to adopt something that then staff creates, a document to support it.
Okay.
Whatever rates they're doing. That document is the staff's justification that goes to public hearing.
Okay.
There's a public hearing. And then there's,
Okay, alright.
after then it goes back to council. And they decide, based upon the public hearing, whether to change the rates. They can't increase them, they can only lower them. After, from the time what their proposed rates are, or they can start the process all over again. If they want to just do it in a one-time process.
Okay.
They can't, whatever they approve on, say, November 4th,
Uh-huh.
and go through the hearing process, they can't raise it. They can lower it. That's good.
So do we have to have our comments to them by the
November
4th?
4th, if we're gonna have substantial comments that we wanna make a recommend, we don't have to make a recommendation. The council asked us to make a recommendation. Well, 3 of us were there.
Mhm.
They specifically requested that we make a recommendation. Again, we can wait till the hearing process and go, make a formal presentation or submit something at that point. We can do both. But so, and then after it goes to the hearing process, then it comes back to the council and they can all be done in the same day. I mean, it can really, you have hold the hearing and then the council can act after that if they choose to. And then there's a time frame that before it can go into effect. And that's to allow people to go out and if they want to protest that, they get signatures and put it to vote. They have that not go into effect. So it gives the 30-day time frame to.
So do we need to have another meeting? I mean, we're not gonna get this done tonight, so.
Well, depends on what you guys want to do.
Yeah.
I think it's a really difficult thing. I mean, Sherry's all tied up in knots right now. The only thing that I would like to ask is that she reads this thing. So she gets the benefit of all of our comments, if the group is in favor of that, and anything else you want to add to it.
Well, let me say that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Blaine.
I don't think we need to put a blame on prior councils or whatever. I think.
There's
you
no
make a
blame.
good-
There's no,
no
no, I'm not
yeah,
trying to do
well,
that.
You're talking about bad decisions and.
Oh,
what have you.
that's.
All that stuff. And what I think, I agree with you. There's a certain amount of town responsibility. They chose to buy a utility. They knew, if they didn't know what they were buying, that's their fault or whatever. They've approved capital improvement programs over the years. It is somewhat their bailiwick, and to the extent they can't have reasonable rates. And when you're on the right side of the chart, you're starting to get unreasonable. If
But-
you can't have reasonable
but you
rates,
have to.
then
I mean,
you
there
have
isn't
to,
an
then
option.
then you have to have the general fund deal with it.
Right.
But what I hadn't heard, this from Sherry, that, basically they're looking at a 3-year
Well,
time
because of the
frame.
fire department. So then they need all that money to go to the fire department.
Right, which is another issue.
Well, yeah, that needs to be explained, because I don't have the visibility, to know that they're depleting the reserves to subsidize water. I don't see that.
She just told us.
She just did,
No,
yeah.
but I think what he's saying is you would have to go to the budget meetings, you would have to get as in-depth as Sean and Ryan is to understand that this is not something that is intuitive, I guess is what. I
Yeah,
think.
and it actually has been the case that since the towns bought the water systems, they've had some goals, but they've never been able to
Yeah.
achieve them, which is to make them enterprise funds where they actually are self-supporting, but they
So-
bought the system and they knew what, one of the reasons the town bought the systems, and especially Cave Creek, was because the level of service they were getting. And people forget, I've got pictures on my network drive that show water outages, water reductions and stuff like that. So those systems were very much struggling. Desert Hills, more so because it actually had a temporary connection to the city of to Anthem, an overland connection, to actually just keep it in water that last year before we purchased it. So yeah, one of the goals was to make sure that it was being run at a higher level standard of care, to be honest,
You've done a great job. I
Yeah.
mean, the projects you have on one of the things that was sent in the last email, I went through all of the future projects. That is unbelievable.
There's a lot, and again, I look back at the old master plans, a lot of it's been, we need to just build on it, you know,
Yeah.
it's not all new ideas, a lot of it's still out there. And again, the old water companies, for some reason, I don't know why, because they'd have to build a rate case, go to corporation commission, obviously it's a little harder. But a lot of this is capital improvements that, you know, could they have been working on? You know, when neither water system actually really provided fire service, that was actually written in their codes, they weren't providing fire.
We were
service.
using
Yeah.
rural, I was anyway.
Yeah, so
Well,
now we.
but, what he's talking about, the fire hydrants wouldn't
Oh,
provide sufficient pressure
Right.
to allow a fire truck to
Right.
actually hook up to it
Okay.
Yeah.
and use it.
And now we've got to set ourselves to a higher standard because
Mhm.
now we are the fire provider that we want to make sure that we can provide fire service.
see.
But we do have areas, and that's part of the capital program, we have booster pump stations, and we have pipelines to replace to get that level
Yeah.
of service, so.
Well, I was just
What are we gonna
wondering,
do?
go ahead.
My question is, what is our role now? As far as the council, are we going to make a recommendation?
That's
that
what
we recommend?
William said they asked.
Or
Correct.
are we gonna show up at these different things to get more input? Hearings and so forth?
Well, I see your role is, you know, you're an advisory committee to the council. Advising on rates and budgets is actually part of the code, the ordinance.
Mhm.
So you know, you've got a more detailed presentation than anybody else has in town, except council. So the thought is the council uses you as a sounding board to say, you know, is this too much?
Right, well,
Can-
I'd
can
like
you
to
do
make
it?
comments on, because she's gonna present this.
Yeah,
I think there's some comments that could be made to the council on a few areas here, and we could just list those at this point. And that's my take, because I mean, November 4th is,
Next week.
You know,
Next week.
Mike.
so I mean, I made comments all the way through. Now, I don't know if anybody wants to say, oh, I, want the 6%, I want the 10%. I mean, that could be council related, or if you guys, we wanted to actually just vote on each one and decide, okay, this is, the majority says, we would recommend, and just because we recommend something doesn't mean the council's gonna go with it, but we would be doing what we're asked to do.
Well, I think what we talked about today, like you brought up, having the rates all the same, right? For the
Well, at least the ones over 40,000, I think
yeah,
those should be equal
commercial
to
and
residential and residential,
have,
Raise the
and
commercial
certainly-
to the residential.
well, the 40,000 and above was the one that was so
What
low.
determines people that should, for efficiency, you know, do we either do a quick slide turn or just come up with some general comments to?
I think, I agree.
Because there was a few things in here, like I think Sherry's been working so much on this. And she's got so many other things that, there's a few things that from an editing standpoint, we'd probably recommend that she do. So is that a better way of doing it? Just to flip through? And if you got some recommendations about, then there's things that, hey, we want equality amongst these rate categories. We'll just make that statement. Yeah.
At least they hear it.
Yeah.
They hear that we reviewed it also.
Yeah.
But we need businesses to stay in the town. We want to encourage them because we need their sales tax.
Correct, but with everything we have been presented today about water, I feel that if they're using over 40,000, their rate should be equal to others, and they can do things in-house for conservation, to do some of the things we've suggested to help themselves, but they're not gonna help themselves unless they have to.
What are the businesses that use a lot of water? The restaurants?
It's, do they all have low flush toilets? Do they all have, I mean, I'm just asking, but
Yeah,
we
they
don't
turn off
have laws that
faucets.
say they have to, I'm assuming, correct?
Well, depending on when they constructed,
But that's what I'm saying, we
Yeah,
don't-
So
we
some
don't
of our
go
older
in and-
facilities, they could probably use something, and then do we go out and try to incentivize
Yeah.
that by doing like a conservation program?
When they
where we
wash their
get-
hands, they can put the things on that only come on a certain amount of seconds. There's a lot of things that can be done if I
Yeah.
own a restaurant or anything
Yeah.
to conserve water. Now, does that cost some capital? Might be, I might have to get a plumber out there and I might have to make some changes.
But what's your return on investment? You gotta factor that in.
Right.
This time.
So,
Water rates.
so that's why I'm thinking that why shouldn't they at least pay the same
Mhm.
rate
So I think,
as
yeah.
the other when we were on those higher rates? But you want to go through one by one real quick?
Yeah, I think we probably put them pretty quickly, because, and I think, the first thing was, just lowering that top tier,
Right. Does everybody agree with the 40,000? I
Uh,
do.
I do with a caveat. I'd like to add additional higher levels.
Well, they do, where did they do the hire? They did hire, over here with the examples.
Oh, yeah, what other later examples?
Well, I
you
think-
did?
William, I thought, the council is looking for the committee to say something to them next week.
But I mean, one way we can do that is by going, because this is the presentation or similar to what.
Right.
What's gonna be, right,
By going through it again, without Sherry presenting it.
Right.
right, okay.
You know, is a way to come
Okay.
up to see if we have a recommendation
Okay.
or not.
So we agree on the 40,000. Do we want to add and possible higher tiers?
Well,
I mean, I'm
again,
just
one of the problems that I have on making that recommendation is it sounds good, but we know that 15% of the customers use 30% of the water. And that's the residential, that's just residential, right?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
actually, well, in Desert Hills, it's 98% of the customers are residential. In Cave Creek, it's 88, and then if you add factor multifamily.
But
it goes to
when we
90.
break that statistic, that 15% of the customer are using 30% of the water.
Oh, that one,
That's-
yeah. Actually, last workshop, they actually presented that as one of the histograms. It was kind of interesting to see that breakdown. That's where they came up with the 40,000 because they wanted to lower that tier.
Yeah, but we don't know, without looking at a customer count.
Yeah, they
like-
presented a histogram at the last.
Yeah, unless knowing how it's broken down.
It's,
Yeah, you don't really know whether it does any good to make a further break,
okay.
you know.
So then as of right now, why don't we just go through
I'm not
this?
saying it's not, but well, we can make the suggestion that it should be looked at.
Okay,
And what I'm suggesting is trying to build on what Robert's saying is, it needs to be looked at, but we don't have the data. One of the
Right.
reasons I've been trying to bring the rate study up every meeting
Yeah.
and.
So you have
and-
data.
And been told that, well, we don't have anything, is because I didn't want to be in a position where we were 3 days away from them making a decision and we're just getting the data.
right.
Mhm.
This is, I mean, that, you know, is what I've been
Okay.
trying to avoid for 6 months.
But change top tier to 40,000. Does everybody agree with that?
I would like to
No,
show
just the 40. Do you agree with the 40? Not adding things, just the 40. Do we agree to go from 50 to 40?
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Are we going with the majority?
Well, we'll see we'll see if there's objections, or if there's a total majority, if it's unanimous, then there's no issue.
So everybody said yes on the 40. Okay, so Bill, do you want to add anything that says a possible look at the future or of other tiers, or are we just going to continue on this slide and agree or disagree on what's on this slide?
I think we should just agree on this slide,
Okay.
because they're gonna do rate increases in another 3 years anyway.
But,
Probably
but,
less than
that-
that, probably another 2 will probably start.
Mhm.
but this helps them tell them what they should be looking at, the cost of service.
Okay,
Study when they're
so do
looking-
you want to say, look at a potential?
Yes, look at
something-
possible tiers after 40,000.
Okay, can we write that down? Okay, perfect.
One of my concerns was Sherry's been working on this budget since, I don't know, April, let's say. You know, and we just started looking at this on the 15th of October, you know, and we should have been looking at this a lot earlier. You know, just didn't see it coming.
That's okay. We just got to go with what we got.
We gotta go.
Well,
yeah.
that's true, but we haven't done our due diligence, you
Oh,
know,
and
to
we
the
could make
the
that
council by
comment, yeah.
reviewing what she's done.
Mhm.
Well, we're trying to do that right now, because if we don't say anything, then they
I'm
get no
not
input.
disputing that, Nancy. I'm just saying that I feel frustrated,
Mhm.
you know, that we're kind of rushing through this thing.
Again, and that's what the comment I was just making.
Mhm.
As they were doing the rate, the cost of service study and trying to build their stuff. We were largely, except for what was given to council, which was very preliminary. We've been excluded except for getting a summary. We haven't been incorporated into it.
Now we have.
Exactly.
And I, Sean, in the future,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta build us in to the process,
I think he is now.
okay?
Oh.
And-
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, I'll admit I haven't been as brought in as I would like, so, yeah, I'm not running the project.
Okay.
How about seasonal rate structure? Is it yes?
7 o'clock, we need to move fast.
Okay.
Yeah, I-
Seasonal rate structure, do we want that? And do we agree with this, or is it no?
Yes.
I agree.
I thought it's trying to shape the summer peaks and really reduce that, because the thought is if you can reduce that.
Can you
will-
like that, Sean?
Will it work or not? I'm not sure. I go back for, Phoenix has been doing it for a number of years. I'm just not sure if we're gonna get there, but if we try it, we can evaluate that. And
Okay.
then in a couple of years, we can say, no, it didn't work.
I like the option. I just,
Yeah.
to me, it's more about like snowbirds, not snowbirds.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So I just, do you think, Chair William, do you want to make the presentation to them, or Nancy, maybe you? Next week? I mean, with these ideas, I mean, I know we're asking Sean and Ryan to write
Whatever,
it
but
down,
they
but.
might even write them as, I don't know how you want to do it, where this
I
is
was
our,
thinking-
what we agree on and what we don't.
Summarize some bullet points.
Yeah, I think that would be
nice.
nice. And I'll be, November 4th, can still be here, yes. So, okay, so rate structure, are we saying yes to that? Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yes?
I don't have any issues with the rate structure.
Okay, then that's yes. Okay, so yes. All right,
We're
So-
trying, yeah.
so now we've got the no water resources versus water resources with the fees. Basically, are we willing to say which one we would like to go with?
Which page are you on?
I'm on,
It's third slide.
well, I want to go with the
Sure.
6% versus 10%, but I think
That's
somebody else
all-
above our pay grade is gonna decide
But all
that.
that is kind of moot when you go back to that page she presented, because it's not really 6%. You gotta look at the page that talks about the real numbers, which is the one that I got
Later on, yeah.
a little, I've got a little auditing background, so.
I think these first couple of slides, the intent here is the bigger discussion of because the utilities have been subsidized by the general fund. The direction is to get that off, and then obviously the water resource fee has an impact there. You say the rate increase. She did not, I see what your point is, that in the tables, when you factor in.
Page 27.
The water
needs to be
resource fee,
looked at.
it makes a significant difference to that number.
78% increase in water fees.
Yeah.
Is what this is proposing. And I'm not against that. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying that's what this is, because I do believe we have to, in my opinion, the city and the council, because of Harkahala.
You'll get it.
I'm gonna get
It took
that.
me a while, yeah.
That's $11 million. That's just one of many things they're doing to assure water in the future amongst many other millions.
I don't think it'll, I personally, and I want to make it clear that I don't believe that the water company, the water customer should pay 100% of those costs
For future water?
for future water. because
Really?
I don't believe the water customers, that it should be through connection, a lot of it should be through a water resource fee that new connections pay and new developers pay. And this should have been done for the last 20 years that the town has owned the system. We can't go back, but
That's true, but Bill, the cut in the Colorado River puts us in a unique situation.
No, I don't disagree with, that's why I was asking whether, how much is needed for existing customers and how much is needed for the potential of new growth. There's a combination of two. And,
Do you have that with you by chance? So you can look at those? Because that's what, that tells everything.
Yeah, that's what we've been talking about. As far as how, and that's a good question. I can't remember how, I haven't been,
I don't recall that it was 100%.
I don't think it was, because we've been talking about a water resource capacity fee for new customers. And this was, so it's not the 100% of the $11 million for Harkahala, which is 500 acre feet, was not being trying to be covered by this. It was only a percentage of that.
Yeah, and again, not 100%.
I can't remember what the
There's still
percentage
some
is.
subsidy, if you want to
Yeah.
call it subsidy. I don't really view it as a subsidy. I believe it as a town obligation to run the utility, not a subsidy, but that's like, if you look at it separately as an enterprise, fine, it's a subsidy. But
Well,
if you look at it as a town obligation, they took it over. It isn't a subsidy. It's, it's part of their operations, and you need to keep rates reasonable. And at the point you can't have reasonable rates, it's a town obligation. We're getting to a point when you add water resource fee, if you put all of that on there, it's unreasonable.
Yeah, and another option with the unreasonableness is to say, while we've been trying to be proactive about things like preventative maintenance and system improvements, the other lens to put on that is to say we can't afford it. We'll have to just deal with reactive maintenance, which becomes
Oh,
a situation
yeah.
that, that's what the system's been really run at
Mhm.
a lot of times. Do you go back to that? And, you know, it can be more costly in the end because you're reactive maintenance, but if you can't afford it, you can't afford it.
Right.
You know,
I'm-
it's just a very
Again,
Yeah.
I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer that, reasonable rates
Yeah.
need to be high enough to maintain a reliable system and a financial wherewithal of the system. They're two critical components that rates are supposed to deal with. But again, when a town owns it and they make decisions, there is, a point where they have to throw some dollars in, and
Yeah.
it's
So
not
I think-
forever.
Yeah, we're gonna say that they should probably continue the subsidy,
Yeah,
right?
it sounds
That's
like
what
that's
we're
what
gonna-
Karen
What's
is
it talking
discussing.
about, Bill?
So let's
So
make
let's do
that a
that.
bullet point,
Yep.
Yes.
okay? Ryan's writing it down.
The town should be charging a reasonable rate.
No, well, I thought you were.
Yeah.
You made, you were Ryan.
Well, I mean, what I'm hearing is, prior fire department, reliability, you let the water system not be reliable anymore, and now you've invested so much in a fire department, now you've
Yeah.
got to subsidize it. So
Right.
that's
Okay.
kind of what I'm
Maybe
hearing.
put
I
it-
like
yeah.
that.
That kind of what I'm,
Yeah, the town should continues helping subsidize to keep rates reasonable.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's really, because the fundamental direction
Thank you,
here is
Tom.
no,
Yeah.
we're trying to
Yeah.
break that.
Okay.
If you want that, then that is another discussion and it'll change the rates.
Yeah.
Is that was one of the goals of this current study was to break that and make them true enterprise funds. And it does have an impact for the water customers. And not everybody in town is a water customer.
Okay,
That's another factor.
And then-
It's
You
not
wanna
everybody's a sewer
you
customer.
wanna
Yeah.
vote on do we wanna vote on the lower increase? Well, actually, Cave Creek
No?
only has 6% at it's 6% for Cave Creek,
That's
whether we,
Water resources.
either way, right? Whether we have,
Water resources.
yeah,
yeah.
without.
I'm not actually against the water resource.
No, but the percentage changes if you have.
So-
that back to that.
But
No, but it-
10%
that could
drop
increase
too,
down the
right?
road too, and that point,
Well,
if it isn't,
we shouldn't start it lower over time rather than just $39 for the average customer a month. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it,
Oh, for a water resource.
yeah.
Yeah.
So could we have, I mean, would you agree that the water resource might need to be what would be an increased fee that is on an increased basis over 10 years or, I mean, something, 5 years? Do you see what I'm saying? That,
One of the problems is there's a bulk payment we were looking at facing in February. And that's going into, we're talking about having to, how do we get that loan to make that?
is that the 11?
$11.25 million, which we paid $50,000 in escrow, so we get that. So we still have another.
Maybe you
We
could-
make that much money by doing this between now and then?
No,
No,
it's to help fund the debt.
yeah, the debt. So the discussion is, can we issue debt before then? We can't go to WIFA quick enough, so we'd have to do bank loans and or the general fund loans, and then we have to figure out a mechanism to fund the general fund back. So there's 3 options being pursued. WIFA would have to be a future option that we could help pay back the general fund. So to make that purchase.
Yeah,
happen.
So-
as I understand, what's being included in the water resource fee is just the debt cost, not the down payment.
Correct, yeah, no, not that full amount, it's actually a payment, yeah, it's a debt save service.
but to your point, Bill, do we say, we'll pick up $2 of that and the other $1.27 the town picks up? Or some split?
50/50 or?
Yeah,
something?
a portion of the water resource, that we think no more than 50% of the water
There we
resource
go.
fee should
There you go.
be.
That was more generous.
And I do think, and I don't have,
It's $20 increase opposed to a 40, which is, I think, a big difference in a bill. I mean,
I'm thinking
some
that
people.
that might already be factored in here, and that's probably a question I could probably have to ask Kevin.
Oh.
Did the rate model, I think he's not charging that full $11 million to the rates, there's also another component to that, I
you
think.
need to make a little star and put a.
Yeah, I think that's a good question to clarify, I think. it's a
Clarify,
clarifying
what-
question.
What's the 327
Right.
thing?
Yeah,
Well, it's supposed to be raising $1 million something, because they have it in here. Water resource fee, where is it? You had $1 million. It's debt service.
It's about $10 million.
I know, but the debt service is only $1 million. It's supposed to raise $1 million. Where did I see this?
Not in the first part, it must be in the last page. This thing.
But no. Bottom of charts.
Unless I dreamed it, but I don't believe I dreamed it.
This other one.
Yeah, I don't have page numbers, so I can't tell you,
Yeah, I know.
but I have it.
Put page numbers on it.
On the last pages, there's page numbers after page like 24.
Oh, it's a 6 monthly water resource fee chart. It says annual debt service for water resource acquisition is $1,138,706.
Okay, yeah.
Is that in here?
Yeah.
No, it's-
Six monthly water
This part.
source fee. Okay.
I thought somewhere.
Yeah, it's at the, yeah, it's on the bottom of that table. Yeah, good catch.
Yeah, 427 is.
So $1 million, that's probably the debt service on a 20-year loan on it. Well, it's more than $11 million. I think in the capital program, we had the $11 million and a future within the 10-year, because when we do the capital program, we look out at 10 years for the rate study.
Yeah.
There was a second purchase that we had planned for another tranche of water within the next 10 years the town will have to make. So it's close to, in total, getting close to $19 million that we have to purchase in the next 10 years, water resources. So that's what's probably factored into this, I'm assuming.
And
The
I,
clarification.
I know that one of the questions we brought up was about the boosted rates allocated to the few people that use it. Is that something that's going on this
Yeah,
list?
no, that'd be good recommendation is, if you guys think that, is right now, the way we did it is for all the booster stations in Cave Creek. They did basically an average, all of them. So they didn't break it out per zone, which we do have the choice of doing. Council could do that because we actually have it broken out that way. We presented it as a rolled up number as an average, and then the same thing for Desert Hills.
And again, I don't think it's worth it for
Yeah.
this rates, because it's.
It's not gonna change.
It's not gonna change anything. I just, there's certain things that for future cost of service, I think we just need to break those out that we might want them to do and look in the next, because they're gonna be doing this again.
Right.
And, but we're staff is really pushing to get this thing in place by February. And that means council has to act.
Right.
Yeah, they're not gonna make changes.
So back to this one. Let's go finish this one though. We were talking about the 1.1 and then we'll go back to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
water resource fee.
So, and Sean, you don't know if this is already been split, meaning that,
Yeah, just looking at the debt service, $1 million in debt service, that's more than $10 million worth of loan, because usually they do that and they break it over a 10-year payback.
so
period.
you're looking at this maybe being the full fee?
I think that
in your
might be a
mind?
full. over
Okay.
10 years,
I think it was
yeah.
Billy,
$11 million.
That's just to clarify.
To making a motion or talk about a split 50-50? I mean, that was something that I heard.
Yeah,
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to keep everybody going.
Subsidy.
Yeah, he's such an organizer.
well, not subsidy, but also with new
New
customers. So that's and that has been a discussion about, it's not all the current customers. It's actually because a lot of this acquisition is for future growth. And if the town can't afford it, we can't afford it, which means that no meters, we have to have that discussion.
Right.
We can't,
We'd
we don't have the
put
water
some
resource. document.
ordinances to, cover all that though. A new fixed fee for any new housing development.
Yeah, that's a capacity fee. We have to go through a full study for that. So that's not part of the scope,
Yeah.
but there's been
Yeah,
discussion of.
but we gotta change the
really
rules,
maintain- Yeah.
before we
Back to
can
this
do that.
committee, are we recommending a 50-50? Are we recommending we like this resource fee, that we don't want it? Like, I'm just trying to get a,
Now, my suggestion is that no more than 50% of the debt service to existing customers at this time. Look
Okay.
to new connection fee and other options.
Yes.
okay, I'm good with that.
I'm okay
Everybody
too.
good?
Yep.
Good, okay. Back to what you were talking about, because I didn't want to, I didn't.
Oh, no,
cut
no.
you off.
No, I just as we were going through this, we kind of brought up stuff to talk about. And maybe it's not for next week,
Okay.
but we could make a list of,
Good.
other ideas that we should possibly throw at them. And like you said, Robert, having that $3.20, the rate. Oh, I guess there was some legal question about that,
Yeah.
right? That we couldn't
Well,
charge everybody the same.
Yeah, I don't entirely agree with that, but I'm not gonna argue it.
Right,
Okay, good.
you don't have to. Okay.
Okay, did we get on there to increase the over 40,000 for commercial and the other? Did that get as a comment to at least meet the fees of,
So commercial should at least meet residential.
yeah,
Right.
that's my take on it. I mean,
Yeah.
and we,
voted on that.
and here we did all
When you say
that.
Commercial, you say.
Conservation.
That way, I can't remember if it's all commercial, just all non-residential.
Well, it says commercial pools and something
Yeah,
else.
Yeah,
Common area.
Sure that
Commercial
non-residential,
pool, common area and commercial irrigation.
Just not.
that are,
But non-residential is good.
yeah, non-residential covers all. of them.
Okay,
So that-
but she has it listed as,
Yeah, I know
What-
she broke it down.
What about just like rates for everyone? Because that's what I'm hearing.
really?
That's what, isn't that what you're saying? I mean, if it's the same as residential.
No, well, the base fee is different.
Just the base fee would change, but the
Yeah,
volumetrics,
but,
yeah.
so, but once you do that, I think the problem
Or the
to find
structure
is
of it.
that. All utilities like a substantial base fee because it's revenue, you know, you count how many customers you have every month and you know how much revenue you're gonna get. Volume, you can guess, but it's a guess.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen when they raise the rates, and because there's so few non-residential,
Yeah.
is it's gonna reduce that base fee quite a bit, which is gonna make them unhappy. So them being the finance people, they're not gonna be happy about having a really small base rate. They'd rather have that high.
There's just
And-
more risk in the,
And
It's-
that's why she didn't say this very clearly, but the reason those rates are lower is
Okay.
they've got a substantial base rate. And the base rate and few customers, and so when you spread it over the gallonage, you can't have as high, because then you overgenerate.
Oh, so we don't
that's
see the
flat.
base rate. What you're
Yeah.
saying is the base rate, we're not see.
Well, it's here, it's in here, it's on a separate chart.
Yeah,
No.
what is it? I'm trying to find that. There's a volume.
But that's how it works when you do it. You're trying to get a certain dollar of revenues that you said. And once you raise the
They were,
volume
but
rate.
they were, but the
you
way
end up
she's
lowering
putting
the
it
base rate.
here, that's not,
it's like-
that's not how she's put it. She's put it that there's current rates and she's not adding an additional base rate that I'm seeing. I understand what you're saying, and that's great. If that's true, but she's not selling it that way.
Scott,
Um,
it doesn't say residential.
She's just saying current rate.
These are all volumetric.
We should add that they-
Yeah, volume rate.
Number of pages.
Well, that too.
Um,
Yeah, and the volume tier sometimes is based on the category, they look at who's using what. And how-
well, that's right. The base rates are the same. Commercial base rates are the same as they are for residential because it's meter size.
It's meter
I
size.
think it
yeah.
is.
So,
Yes.
so it is the same, but that's the problem is when you make that, they'll be over earning for their cost in the cost of service. If you keep the base rates the same,
Mhm.
because you're gonna, oh,
Yeah, you get it one hand or the
yeah,
other.
so. I don't know if they can justify it or not, because we don't have the cost of service, we don't know what that generates. It may generate a few $1,000s, it may generate tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay.
That doesn't
And,
sound-
and so I don't know what happens, but what we can say is we would like them to be as close at or at equal or as close to equal as possible.
Okay, how's that? Great. That makes sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Because what they do is in the cost of service, they break it down and allocate cost to each customer class they have.
Mhm.
And I have no idea how they did that. That's why I kept asking for the cost of service study. But, and so I don't know how many dollars are in each of those classes.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so that's why
That's the issue.
that's what happens to the volume.
And then on this
They're
page,
over.
which is page 27, it does have a page number
Where?
on the very, and the latter parts of the thing has page numbers on the bottom. So get to 27. So this is the
Oh, yeah.
one that we're saying that we're willing, or we would recommend 50% be funded by the city. And then do we have a recommendation from this committee of whether we want the 3.27 per thousand or the fixed tiers that was presented by her?
I'm in favor of a flat fee, as you hit it, because I think it hits them harder up front, and it, it keeps you wanting to stay under that level.
It's a wash in the end, Bill. It's just, how it's perceived.
Yeah, I think
But
people,
I really don't have much of a different, I do think the cost per gallon is the best way to convey it, but I don't have a strong argument either way.
Well, you can argue that if you didn't go over a certain percentage, the people up to say 20,000 or 30,000 shouldn't be charged anything. Because there's water to serve everybody at that level. And it's only those over that we're really supplying. And so they should bear the whole cost.
Yeah, that's my point. They should bear more.
And
There you go.
It shows that on the very high usage customer, it actually flips. So you see that at the end, the resource fee is actually less for the
What
fixed
page
tier
is that?
versus the gallons.
Is that that's one of the
Well,
last
yeah.
pages?
They're not listed.
Oh, that's your 27, page 27.
But
Just the
Oh,
last,
I see.
all the way to the right, you
Thank
can
you.
kind of see the very high user,
Okay,
the difference between the two.
thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, technically you could argue whether it stand up in court or not as being discriminatory or not. Is that, that we only have to replace X amount. And that doesn't go across the board. If everybody stayed at that level, we wouldn't need any additional resources. And anything over that is where you start charging. It's an argument that can be made, again, so people might not agree with that. And certainly your large users tend to be people who can afford litigation more than the small users.
so
But they
that's,
sure lowered, if you look at that chart, again, on the high user customer,
Yes.
they actually lower the rates. Starting 20,000. High user to 66, 74 to 66, then 226 to 92.
That's why I said it flips. Yeah.
And then over that, then they get you.
then they get you, yeah.
But is there a reason why the 30 to
It's
40
just that's the
is so
tier
low?
you're in. That's
What's
the
in it
tier.
again?
It's the tier you're in. You're really looking only at, 9,999 gallons. So it's
Which page are we on now?
29,
Yeah, 127. So it's a very high usage customer on the right, the right two columns, the current versus proposed.
yeah. So once you get to 20 to 30,000 gallons, it actually goes down.
Yeah, so why, I'm just asking why.
But wouldn't know. I noticed the same thing.
Okay, I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there too. Why does that, why do they then get it cheaper? Until 50, when we're in a water situation.
It very well could go down to, like, you'd have to go back to that other page on when they compared the actual cost per rate increase. It could just be a typo.
No, they're
Nah.
trying to balance the same base. And instead, the thing is that the higher water customers are using that much more water. The thought is that if you lower the top tier from 50 to 40,000 gallons. You're really trying to penalize anybody over 40,000. That it shows there, but I think and that's one of the base assumptions at the fund. You see that on the left column there, she's trying to break the two tiers out, and I think the thought is that they're going to the 40,000. And again, it is a substantial jump if you're going over 40,000 gallons. It's a huge increase in that every 1,000 gallons above that. It's very substantial.
But why give them a break? Between 30 and 40?
It's showing the example between the two, I think. Yeah,
No, it's current and proposed.
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
it's just because you're still trying to operate the system, you're still trying to operate your same base budget. So by pushing that into a higher tier, then you don't need to charge as much for the lower tiers, because the assumption is there's some elasticity in that they're paying that much proportionally more that you're actually generating the revenue. If you had not lowered the lower tiers, you'd be over generating revenue. You can't justify that.
How do I just don't understand.
Yeah, it's just a
making more
substantial
revenue when
change.
we have all these costs coming. That's what I don't get, is we have so many costs in our future in order for us, if we want to still live here 20 years from now, we have so many costs. I don't understand if I'm running a restaurant, why now I'm gonna go down and only pay $92.60 instead of $226 to get to my over 40,000. I mean, that's a big chunk of money we're wasting.
Well, that's just in the winter, that's a winter summer, so you gotta go to the summer, they're paying
Okay.
more.
So summer, it's the same thing. They lowered it from 226 to 97.
Yeah, so for that, every 1,000 gallons between that 30,000 and 40,000 gallons.
It's now 97 instead of
Instead of
226.
226.
That doesn't,
And as soon as you go to the 40, which was the proposed, I don't know why they have it here, because I think we.
So Nancy's getting at this as an opportunity loss, you
yeah,
know,
thank you.
Yeah,
and when you use that much, I mean, you're using as much as 10, 15 different households.
Yeah.
Yes, you should pay more, absolutely, and that should go into a bucket, that use our water resource bucket or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
but for development of future sources.
But we're all, I thought we agreed, right, to do the fee, the 3.27 versus these tiers?
Well, we're gonna use half of that, basically.
Right. That's what we-
And
Oh.
this extra rate thing could help offset some of that,
Yeah.
Go back to.
in the
regular
town's
number.
favor.
Let me go back to those initial pages. Maybe that would make more
I
sense.
think it does make more, actually, it does make more sense if you look at there, because you're condensing that, that band from 20,000 to 10,000. So you'd actually look at the tier structures before, so let's look at that.
I'm going looking at that. Hold
Yeah,
on, let me get there.
um,
Cave Creek,
It's less gallons,
Yeah, it's less gallons, that's why.
less
it's a less
gallons in
number
that, in
At
that,
at a higher tier.
at the higher tier. It's just how it's perceived.
Yeah, it's still going up.
Um,
That's, if you look at the tables that precede that one, they're just trying to summarize. The Cave Creek volume rate, let's see, what's residential? Cave Creek, single family residential, there it is. It's like fifth slide in. So right now, the current tiers are the 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 50, over 50. And they give you the rates of that. So 309, 464, 760, 746, 1130, 1131. If you look at the proposed rates, they do go up.
yeah, 92, well, then she's got it wrong. So then this is wrong. You see what I'm saying?
I think the math is because it's
But
actually,
It's not right here, is what I guess. I'm
yeah, I
saying.
think what's happening is, yeah, I do think, yeah,
This
get the math on that
226,
table.
someone needs to point that out.
It's based
that
after,
That's an error.
I just quickly did the math. It's based after 10,000 gallons rather than 20,000 gallons.
So it's half of what it should have been, just because it's a smaller, I don't know why they have that. What's confusing, I think, is because that parentheses saying it could be to 50 or to 40. It's actually 40. They calculated
40.
based on 40. and
It
they
looks
didn't
like 40.
clarify that.
Yep.
I don't know why they did that.
I don't know, something isn't right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the best table, these ones are showing that the rates aren't going down for the tiers. Their calculation is how they're presenting it on another
Okay.
table. I think
That
these-
just might need to be looked at, but that's her page
Yeah.
that has the issue where it's not showing, if we go with those, either the $3.27 or the fixed tier, that's a 78% increase for next year, from our current to next year for my average water bill.
Yeah.
If you include the water resources, and that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I do agree on that table and that chart that they need to. for
So then let's
transparency
say
show
if we do
both.
half, which you're saying,
Yeah.
we're gonna split that and it's gonna be a $20 fee instead. That's gonna be, so instead of,
Yeah, that's what's confusing here. That really, really not sure why she got that.
61 divided by.
Well, again, I personally prefer the flat charge, but
Yeah.
not
Just
the.
to show current.
Well, I agree with you.
There.
I'm,
Not the
showing you.
327, but the.
Okay,
I
and
guess
it's something
I see,
that-
all you see, you're saying is.
Each category,
Yeah.
hit a fee, hit a charge, and if you're in that category, you just get whacked.
Thing is, if I add up this, it still doesn't. But I just,
Check the math on that one.
yeah.
I'm sorry, what category are you talking about?
Well, the.
That's a 33% increase if we
Oh,
do
the-
$20.
I thought those were
if
the
the-
tiers.
If the
It's
water
like
user
40.
pays $20 a month for the water resource fee. On average, I'm doing the average one. Then that's a 33% total, that includes our increase, the 6%, so now it's a 33%, roughly 33% increase in fees. That's different than 78.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to stomach than,
And that's based on 327 for.
I just did
Or-
$20, I did the fixed and split it in half. Bill.
Okay.
So the fixed was 39, I said it's 20, because we're talking about
Sure.
trying to get half.
So recommendations, general.
$61 to
Yeah.
$80 is a 33% increase.
Yeah, and that would be the justification. You know, the 78%, it's just too much.
In
For
1
1
year.
year.
Well, that's why I was saying if you needed it, you know, over time. Cause Sean, you're saying we need that because we have to cover the 1 point whatever funding. The,
Oh, the debt service, yeah, the $1.14 million.
I just don't think that's
debt
gonna
service on that, yeah.
get sold in as a 1 year thing.
Yeah, I don't, not knowing the actual numbers, that's seems to be, that's the Arcahala purchase and the water capital program had another purchase out in about another 5 or 6 years, another $7 or $8 million. So I think he's
I
got that.
think we
in there
can
in the
sell
debt service.
33%. Or, you know, we just say, look, this
So
is
you're
what's
saying,
happening.
Sean, the $11 million is not spent in year one. That's over time.
No, there's $11 million and there's another purchase
Down the
5 years
road.
out. Yeah,
There's two.
Yeah.
because he used the capital program, we put in 2 tranches of water within the next 10 years. I think that's the debt service on paying for 2 payments and having 2 concurrent loans that are running out 20 years. So they extend out to 25 in total. He's trying to pay for it as one fee.
And you got a bunch of stuff in there to fix these wells, to do, I mean, you have so many projects.
Yeah,
that
that's
you
funded in
need
the
to
cap.
do.
That's funded.
Oh, that's
actually.
already.
That's partly, yes, funded, yeah.
That's in the.
The increase, the 6%.
That's in the 6, okay, so when we're selling it though, we need to remind people that in that 6%, that's also getting. Other things, you know, it's not just that one purchase of land to get water,
No.
it's increasing our current, you know.
Yeah, there's a couple other capital
Needed.
projects, not as costly as the actual
Right.
purchase of the water resources right now. But then what I'm hearing is that, yeah, the committee is pretty consistent on trying to say, you know, regardless of whether it's a cost per 1,000 gallons or a fixed tier structure, is that really water resource fee should really not be charging, no more than 50% of that should go to the current customers. We're going to have to verify this case. And then I hear the tables, you brought that up, Nancy, is that really this table should actually have a second row at the bottom, at least 1 or 2 that shows with those different rates, what is the rate increase with adding the water resources? So it's
So they
really
see it.
transparent.
Yeah, see,
It's not saying
percentage.
6%.
I don't think Sherry's
Yeah.
got that now.
She may, but I mean, you know, she's busy and all that. It's just that what he's saying is
Yeah,
that.
we'll just make sure it's
that-
clearly
that town
defined.
council, unless you sit here and calculate, okay, I'm a calculator, as you can see,
Yeah.
okay? I mean,
Right there.
you know, that's why I'm on the committee. We all have our strengths, right? So I'm looking at numbers going, wait a minute, this isn't making sense. You see what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
you know, that's all.
Well, and the other thing, just at the bottom there, it says residential wastewater increase, that should be water, so, and there's some typos
Yeah.
on here that we can just clarify.
Yeah.
I think it's more clarification, but in this case, it's more transparency on this table that it's clear. And if that's the case, then that might be too much, it goes back to the reasonable rates discussion, but that's not reasonable, and that's the committee's recommendation, it's just, it could be too much, be reasonable, that's our tier.
You, Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank Nancy for being a calculator.
I know.
No, it's good, it's, yeah, again,
Yeah.
And I still think that table's wrong. When I go back and look at the rates, that table, the 226.20 going down to 92, I think that 226.20 isn't right.
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have to factor it in, because it is just,
There's
it's
something
they're
there.
trying to do 2 comparisons there. They're doing a 20,000 gallon at a certain rate and a 10,000 gallon at a certain rate, but we can check the math on that. So then maybe that is, you know,
Yeah.
we'll back check the math.
Back check.
Oh, I see. They did a 30, so the first one is current, is
The
30
First
to
one, then that's what's
50.
confusing. It's the column on
Yeah,
the
it's on
left. The first
20,000
one's for
gallons.
20,000 gallons of water.
And
And the second number is only for 10,000.
There you
And they're
go.
2 different rates.
That's hard to,
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that
Okay.
out.
Yeah,
See
look at
that
the
now?
294, that catches up.
Yeah,
I see that now comparing back to the other.
yeah.
So
That's
that's
why the
okay.
0 to 4,000 doesn't show up in the current, because
Okay.
that's not a current tier that we have.
right. So maybe even just make one more
Yeah.
line and break that and keep the current and show what that's for, and underneath it,
Yeah.
go over to the proposed so that, I don't know.
It's just hard because that, and especially if we want to add another, at least 1 or 2 more
Well,
rows.
I
at the
think
bottom
this
for the
needs to
percentage.
be
Yeah,
two, or that we can, we're gonna
yeah,
have to have two pages. Or much smaller font. But it can't be smaller font for the PowerPoint.
Just so we
Yeah.
go it blank, you know. you
and
do-
again, the one big takeaway is the average water customer here is not the low, but the average, which is 13,600 gallons, is their rate would go up from $119 dollars and 67 cents to $123 plus 44 or plus 93. So that's that's the big takeaway from this, that it's not, the 4% is just without water resources. What's it gonna be with water resources?
Yes,
It's a-
that's-
it's a
that's
much
what
more
I was-
Substantial increase.
That's what
And
I was
that's not
calculating.
transparent on this. And
That's what I was calculating.
Yeah.
That's where you get 78% if you don't split the 50-50, and it's 33% if
Yeah.
you split it. And I was just doing a rough split of $20.
And just to go back on the per month rate, what I really am supporting is a variable. The more you use, the more you pay.
Right.
Right.
As far as an overall cost, not only just because you use more water, but it's more expensive. As the tiers get up, that's what it should be.
That's
Right.
it should be, yeah.
Which is back here on those pages where they are.
Whether you
Proposing.
do it as a volumetric increase, as you go by tier.
Well, that's
do
what
it-
they
Or you
proposed
do it as a flat month.
over here.
It
Yeah.
is really just the more you're using it, paying more of the value it should be per thousand.
Okay, so then we're planning on coming, right, next week? Is that what we're deciding?
Oh, yeah,
Or-
because I think it's gonna be an agenda item, so what they'll do is they'll do the presentations based on what they heard, and then typically it's a open there'll be a public comment section, so effectively you guys would have the opportunity during that session to give your comments to council, and then they close the public hearing, and then they deliberate amongst themselves and give directions to staff as far as the next step. Are they okay proposed? Because there's options in here too. The council has to make decisions on the
That's fair.
options. So as utility advisory board, we're making a presentation, as far as what you've seen this presentation in advance of them getting a full preview of it, you have these questions and these
Those
suggestions.
comments, and
Yeah,
Ryan
yeah.
wrote them
Mhm.
down.
We'll type
He
it
had,
up.
so he can
And-
add those bullets.
Yeah.
and-
And then Desert Hills water, I think we should support the 10%. Which, since we're paying 38% even at half price, that, and I realize it's paying more now, but go to try to get them off the dime as much as possible, because they aren't part of the town. They aren't, they don't.
Sorry, Joe.
contribute.
Yeah.
No, I disagree.
That, well,
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, half the customers are Desert Hills customers, and if we were to leave this town, I think the town would be in trouble.
That's where that bulk rate comes into play.
Yeah, so we're already paying a lot,
Proportional share.
but I mean,
Yeah,
certainly
it's a
the
base rate.
council has to decide, right, 6 or 10. Of course, I would go for the 6, but
Do we want him to speak or chairman?
I don't
Under
care.
comments?
Nancy can do it. She's got most of these points down. It's fine with me.
Either one, fourth is on.
yeah.
But I mean,
But-
okay, so we got, well, what's the, do we have a position on what level to go with Desert Hills or no?
That's interesting. I didn't notice that. The average customer does use a little bit more water, about 2,000 gallons a month, but then, they're suggesting that, as your average Desert Hills customer, we'll look at the winter option, would go down $3 a
Right.
month. But then the Cave Creek customer who's there's gonna be up to, well, it'll still be lower, so 123 plus either 44 or plus 39, so they're still below the Desert Hills customer. But Desert Hills is getting a little bit less.
Which one are you looking at? A
I'm
or
look-
B?
That's option A I was looking at.
Okay, so that's the 6%.
So it's the option B, they keep it pretty much the same.
Option B is a 10%.
Even that's confusing.
Well, she needed,
I found that
it'd be
confusing.
better if we had more things on the top that even for the council, it needs to say 6% or 10%.
Right.
So that,
Versus option A and B.
Oh, yeah, is it 6 and 10? What are the actual options?
At the very
For
beginning,
Cape Creek, it's 6 and 10, and the
No.
Hills.
Desert Hills at 6 and 10.
Oh, I see them. You gotta tie back to these tables.
But you gotta look at like the third or fourth
B.
page, it says option A and B.
And that,
Take a look at
that's
the
going back
general
to the
fund.
discussion of whether or not, how quickly the town is wanting to wean the utilities off subsidies, which has been a stated goal of the council. And then what I heard from the committee is that the committee's recommendation is the town reconsider that actually they bought the utilities. They knew there was issues with it, and to keep rates reasonable, there needs still to be a continued offset moving forward beyond the few years that they're being proposed here.
Correct.
That's where,
So
so, yeah.
it should be under, shouldn't be off the table.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Obviously, if you can have reasonable rates and get off, that's great, but
Yeah,
right now, with the water resource fee being on top of everything else,
Cave Creek, it becomes
it becomes unreasonable.
Well,
It-
especially
it-
if you look at that one she put at the end, when she comparing it to other cities.
Well, they're right.
Yeah.
And, it's really hard to compare rates that way because Phoenix, and they're not even on there, but, you know, it has such
Yeah, they
a
are.
large system.
I know.
I mean, any of these. I mean,
couple hundred thousand.
But you know, Wickenburg, how many customers do they have?
They got a lot of wells, remember, I mean, some of these areas have, right?
Well, actually, they don't. They're actually drilling a lot of wells because they actually, Phoenix had a program, you know, they started on groundwater wells like most jurisdictions and they started their SRP plants. And then when the CAP came on board, they did their CAP facilities and effectively they didn't
Right.
keep the wells
I
functional.
meant, I'm sorry, I meant Wickenburg. Wouldn't Wickenburg people have a lot of wells up
Yeah,
there?
Yeah,
they
they're
are,
That's
they
what I
are
meant,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, they're
well
groundwater based.
system.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And one of the factors goes into well water is whether they have to do treatment. You
Right.
know, is it good quality groundwater or they have to
Probably
do?
watching
you know,
like arsenic.
Arsenic.
Oh,
Okay,
Yeah,
back
that's
to
probably-
the A and B in Desert Hills.
Yeah.
My feeling is B, just because it depletes the general fund loan faster. But I'd be willing to go for a compromise too, instead of 6, 8, for example.
I think we should, I'm 6 and I'm 6 on Cave Creek too. I think we need to do this in stages.
Taper down.
You know, and then if we have to go more again, we go again, but I'm trying also to get it approved, you know,
Yeah.
and not have a angry group, you know, coming for the hearings.
Angry no
Yeah.
matter what.
Well, yeah,
Well, yeah, another option, council could come back and say, we want to keep it lower, then we'll have to figure out how to, you know, that'll probably mean that, okay, now they'll come back and say, now we can't afford everything we have in the current capital
right,
program.
right.
What
Then it
has to
affects
shift
so
out?
many things, right?
Yeah, but there's there is always a moving target. There's different priorities within the capital program, what we need to do. You know, right now we're facing a fairly large force main repair that we're trying to figure out right
Right.
now that we didn't budget for. So,
All right, Carol, I think you voted 6,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
self-interested. That's okay, that's okay, that's completely fair.
More than
I-
Cave Creek.
I-
I
I
mean,
don't
so
dispute
that's
that.
okay. The percentages were going down
I don't
because
know,
they're like,
I'll support Carol, that was.
Yeah, I'm 6. Okay, yeah, but.
So option A.
Okay. Okay, what about Cave Creek?
But
They're gonna wanna go 10 because of the splitting the,
Cave
Cave Creek is 6, no matter what.
six.
is it 6 no matter?
Yeah,
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 So that's
they
what I
have it with and without a water resource, but they don't tell you what the difference
yeah,
is.
and we
Yeah.
voted on the water resource.
Alright. I got you.
Well, it's interesting. The rate increase is 6%, but there's more of a general fund subsidy on one than the other. I don't
The
understand.
math is get a confusing word summarized that these tables are a little confusing.
Yeah,
The gentleman puts these together, Kevin, he knows he's inside and out and I believe he'll be at the meeting, so he can more clearly explain that. Would have been nice. Sherry's done a lot, but Kevin's actually, he's the one who built all these.
I mean, I just don't, if you have the water resource fee, well, why would the subsidy in 25, 26 might be a done deal, but I guess it's.
when things are due.
Yeah, why is 26, 27 the same? And then it goes down to 0. I'm totally confused as to why it would.
Debt service,
With the fee maybe?
pay off of.
Yeah,
debt
but
service.
the fee starts being generated in January or February of 26. Why are the numbers exactly the same in 26 and 27? They should be lower. It
Oh.
just makes no sense to me, that's all. Debt service coverage changes, but not the fund subsidy. But
Yeah.
Well, and this
The
other
debt
thing, if you
service,
look
yeah.
at Cave Creek, no water resources, if we're saying half. You know, they're proposing 6% a year. And then it goes 5, 5, 4, 4. I can see that staying at 6 every year because we are asking the city to do half. I mean, that's future, but you know, this isn't just 6% for 1 year. They're wanting,
Cumulative, that.
I just don't, I don't understand on this page to talk
box with water resources, with water resources
And
and
fee.
fee, how the general fund subsidy is basically the same until the 27, 28. You know,
Yeah, I don't know.
that makes no sense to me, but there's, what we are supporting, I thought, was a 6% increase with a water resource fee, but half the water resource
Yes.
fee that they're proposing.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. Hallelujah. Gotta go home now.
Yeah, the only thing that changes on either there's two tables is the end cash balance. So effectively, the general fund is subsidizing and just increasing and providing the cash balance for the reserves. Because I know there is a goal of that we get to fundability, so we actually have reserves and contingency set aside, which we currently don't have for the different utility funds. So in case of emergencies and or, I think it's a goal of it's either 3 or 4 months worth of revenue in each one of them, which we don't currently have. In case another recession comes and people don't pay their water bills, we still need to run the system.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's not clarified in here, but that's actually the end cash balance is what they're trying to get to
Okay,
also.
so
to
they're
get
basically, they're basically not paying anything on the utility, it's just the
Yeah.
cash reserve is being put as. Yeah.
It's building up that cash reserve, so it's moving it from one
That's right.
account on the side to put it aside for reserves, which we have a goal of trying to get to a reserve
Right.
balance, which we don't have.
Okay.
Because it's not good, they're not true enterprise funds right now, and again, we're relying on the general fund to be the reserves.
Mhm.
So,
So, what our proposal would do is cut those, wouldn't change the subsidy, but it would end up with the year end, end of year cash.
Yeah.
Lower than what proposed there,
that's our comments for us.
might be zero.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So I think
okay.
some of the council have seen this before, so I think they're more familiar with some of these tables, but yeah, I think that for clarification and when it finally gets put out to the public, they're trying to present a couple of different options and then there'll be a summary which consolidates all this, but I'm hearing a couple of general things is, just the idea that the reasonable rates is a big one. And especially if we know we have to pay for water resources and the 50/50 to verify that the current rates that are being proposed here is not paying for more than 50% of that currently. And I'll also have to get with Kevin on that. Kevin will be able to explain how he built that model. The $1.14 million debt service, what is that covering? Is it covering the both tranches of water? Because in fact, the first bucket of water is largely for new existing customers. The second one is all for growth. So of those two buckets, more of it should be proportional growth. That should be the capacity, which we have talked about doing that study. It's a separate study we have to do after this to wrap in real quick to get that together to start doing that. We can't do it with a rate study. It has to be a capacity study. But that is coming together. So that's a question for him. But the reasonableness, especially for Cave Creek, Desert Hills is being adjusted a little bit, but with adding the water resources to Cave Creek customers, it's just too big of a lift. Is what we're hearing here. There needs some way to balance that out.
Yeah, they just need to understand that that would be a 78% increase.
Yeah, and that's just the
That's
tables
just
to clearly
crazy.
define that.
I mean, in 1 year.
Right. Nobody's.
And unless they come up with connection fees or other ways to get the water resource fee,
Right.
you're delaying the time, you're gonna have a bigger increase later, understand that. But-
Or we could,
Well, well, if you can get debt to spread
Increase it
out,
over
but
time.
Yeah.
well, I was just thinking over time, increased bills. Some people, a lot of people, it's not gonna affect. Some people it will. I tell you what it will do, it'll start eventually getting some of our conservation going.
Yeah.
Well, that's-
Possibly.
why I was asking questions about, rather than looking at their rates that they have here, why didn't they start with the rates that they already approved as a minimum and just do everything else on volumes, because that would encourage conservation. I still think that's the better
Yes.
way to start this, but it's not, they didn't do it. I don't have that data, and if we're gonna try to let them go forward, that's not, but to me, they had an increase on the minimums, at least for Cave Creek. They didn't for your group. Desert Hills had no increase proposed for the next 3 years.
Yeah, there's one slide on it.
Anyway, I thought that would have been the best way to do it.
This is
help our conservation.
associated
It's
with
more
Norris.
expensive on.
Yeah, picking up on your point, Bill, to finance, some more or accelerated payment of some of that debt, water resource fee, I still like the idea of adding some higher increments above
Well,
the
we made that
50
note. Right,
above
made
the
that note, right?
50,000.
We could add
Sorry.
increments beyond
and
40,000.
put
Yeah.
higher rates up there.
Yes. Another,
I just don't think they're gonna be able to do that and live with their February.
No, but for the
They
future,
may
I
not,
guess I
but-
think
For
we're talking
next
about
year,
future,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think it should be studied in the next.
Only
budget
the
service.
intercept
I think it's
part of
critical.
Make sure.
And that would be a pile of money coming in another way,
Right.
possibly.
Yeah.
What,
Okay.
sorry, I was thinking wastewater, we haven't talked about that much. One thing I would suggest on wastewater is, and you brought it up, is actually the current rates actually do list the intercept devices and it's actually a stepped increase. I think it needs to be added into this, so we actually continue that step increase, because it's part of the ordinance, and maybe we'll just have them, maybe put a note saying that the current proposed fees are gonna remain the same for intercept devices on that slide.
Yeah, I wondered why it was just left out.
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
I just thought it was.
I had to go look at the actual ordinance, and we actually built it into the ordinance, it's not a fee, and the goal is there to cover the cost of us running the pre-treatment program. We use an outside consultant to help manage that, and it's the cost and time to get that consultant and staff time to run that program, and now we've actually found more devices. And we've done a better inventory, and we have more devices to
And that
manage.
usually happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, what about the sewer rates? Any comments or
Yeah, let's see what-
position on that?
I have
from
no
us?
They're
comments.
awful as they are. I can't see doing any worse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's definitely has to be an area that they look at in trying to make that more cost effective. I mean.
No, they have.
and again, and
I
again,
mean,
going
but
back to
I
the
know,
capital program,
right.
trying to expand the system, which means, to get people to not just encourage people, but require people to make a connection.
Right.
If we get the three neighborhoods,
I just don't agree with that. How
No.
much is a commercial on it? You said Walmart, like what part of the corridor is on it?
down south,
Yeah.
Walmart, Sprouts, all the commercial along Carefree Highway is connected.
Yeah.
What's not connected, is really, there's, Canyon Ridge Estates and the state of Detroit 1 and 2. And then the other big block that's been discussed is called Black Mountain.
Yeah, you talked about
Yeah,
that
which is
once,
the area
about
that,
where you'd have to, that's.
But
the-
that's another $10 million
Yeah.
to run sewers up there. I think, if I remember correctly, the master plan showed about $7 million to get both the state of Detroit 1 and 2 and Canyon Ridge
Right.
to
But
activate.
then they
their
have to
sewers.
pay then a sewer fee per month now.
Yeah, and
Well-
right, the way it's written now, they actually have to pay the capacity fee to make a connection to the system too,
Right.
because,
But. I
Yeah,
just-
I disagree with that. Living there,
yeah.
oh, well, it doesn't make sense
they were gonna
to
put
transfer over.
us into the system before Walmart and they pulled the plug and then did Walmart instead. Don't disagree with that,
Okay.
but I don't like being faced with, thousands of dollars to hook up to the system and then thousands of dollars to remove my septic, which happens to be under a big saguaro cactus in a wall. And then having to pay an extra $100 a month,
Makes no sense. If you're the owner. at least I don't
Yeah,
think
and the only thing
that's-
with the capacity fee is that's something we'd probably have to look at prior to that going into effect, because the old capacity fee was based on what we thought was gonna be the growth of the system, excluding that trunk sewer connection. So they were dividing the cost of the construction of the sewer system by a fewer number of connections. So that needs to be relooked at before we went into that. So that will lower it, because right now the capacity fee is fairly high for the sewer system. And that was based on the fact that, yeah, without those subdivisions coming in, there's not that many new connections that are gonna happen, and we gotta pay for that cost of that system, so. So that would help reduce it, and then the council has to make a decision,
Or charge.
is there
Why
an
not
improvement
charge
district
Park
formed
and
or something
Sprouts
else?
and all those people more?
Yeah, they're already on the system, yeah, or do you charge them with the base fees that help offset that?
I mean, I'm just asking, but I mean,
Yeah,
they, you know,
effectively, the capacity
all-
fee is paying for the cost of the town to it was $26 million to move the treatment plant down there and construct the sewer along Carefree Highway and the force main and the effluent line. About of the 26, I think $2 million was the 16-inch water line that went at the same time. So they're trying to spread out the cost of $24 million
right.
over what was at the time only 700 accounts. Right now we have 948 accounts. It's an expensive system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are people still able to put in homes without hooking to the sewer?
If they're within 300 feet of a sewer line, they're required to connect. That's how the town code is kind of weird. It says discontinue the service. We interpret that as if town sewer is defined as being available to any property if the sewer is within 300 feet of any property line. If that's the case, then we will not issue a septic waiver to the county that allows them to then go to Maricopa County and get a septic permit. We don't issue the septic permits, but in Maricopa County won't issue a septic permit without that waiver from us to say that they're not required to connect. So that's how it works.
And the
So
trunk line just, it goes all the way down Cave Creek as well as.
We look- yeah, we map it out to see where it is because it goes through some neighborhoods too. So wherever it is, we actually have it all mapped out for the, well, we know where all the ends are, not just the trunk, but all of our lines. And we basically look at, is a parcel within 300 feet of an existing sewer? Yes or no? We do that pretty much, not quite daily, but a couple times a week.
Yeah, a couple times a week.
Yeah. The larger is because the people that to get any septic work done, including repairing of the system, the county actually requires them to get that letter from us. So a lot of the septic providers will send it into on behalf of the owners.
Ryan, could I ask you to, or somebody needs to draft up those points?
Yeah.
And,
For sure.
and then.
I'll draft some.
Well.
Bill, you can do it, or I don't care, cause
Well,
I'm busy.
I-
If you wanna go to the meeting and go.
No,
through
no,
all
you can
these,
do this.
I don't care. I don't-
I'll probably be at the meeting too, but you're more than welcome to deal with it, but I was just, and I would like it to be circulated.
Yeah.
And first, you know, you wanna review it first, Nancy, and then circulate it, that's fine.
Right.
You know,
I'll just make sure that we all,
yeah, so if there's an issue.
nothing was missed.
Right,
Yeah,
I can get it out probably tomorrow.
thank you, Ryan, I
Sure.
really appreciate it,
No
and
worries.
thanks for staying so late.
I
you
know.
had a horrible day. I make a motion, we adjourn.
okay.
Yes.
Before we do that, before we do that, we had another agenda item, which,
What?
which had to do with the conservation. I'm assuming there's nothing that needs to be, that's urgent on, you know, just follow up from, I wasn't at the meeting, I had COVID. That,
Really?
yeah.
So
Sorry.
they did a great job.
Yeah.
Sure they did. I tried to see it on YouTube, but it
And
wasn't-
Cactus Charlie's
because-
already on Facebook, I saw.
Texas Charlie, yeah.
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 Yeah,
we missed
LinkedIn.
the
Mass
preview
now.
of it.
So I didn't know if there was any follow-up that we needed to discuss before, and then we also have to talk about meetings, next meetings, future meetings, and agenda items. Before we adjourn. Just a couple of things, technology out there, so.
Okay, so
I had proposed as a tentative to Ryan when he asked for dates, just December 10th, nothing before December 10th. Cause our regular meeting would be right at Thanksgiving, day before.
I'd say, Bill, if there's something that we need to do in regards to the water,
Rates.
the water rates, you know, the November 4th meeting, I'd say, you know, let's follow up then. Otherwise, I'd
Right.
wait until January.
that's a
If
good
there's nothing
point.
else pressing.
Because it won't be until the end of January if we do our normal, so it's, you know, 3 months basically away.
And when are they voting? When's the council voting on all this?
January 6th.
Yeah, since so next, this is
Or they
the
both
workshop,
are
they don't have the,
on the 7th.
it's the study to approve.
written.
So yeah, the goal will be that they, issue their written notice of intent. And then they're working towards that, yeah, so.
So do we need to review anything on what they're going over on January 6th is what I guess I was asking, because then if we do, then we need to meet in December.
Well, what I would suggest is that we set
Tentatively.
December 10th as a meeting date. We
Okay.
can always cancel the meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
If there's no reason to meet.
okay,
Uh,
I'm in.
that's, if,
okay.
that
Yeah.
was what I was trying to do, is just preserve a date. And then the next one that we will put is the 4th Wednesday of January, whichever day that is.
I'll be out of town.
Next meeting is
Fourth,
December 10th, you
1,
said?
2, 3, that'd be the 28th, January 28th.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to get at the back end of this is having the effective date, so it'd actually be coming into effect for people's bills by next March. If that gets delayed anymore, then we're into April, and then we're getting into the higher consumption months, which is what we're trying to avoid.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so it
I
doesn't
agree.
take effect.
Well, because what I think they'll do if they adopt the rates, is they're also on November, cancel the rate that be effective in January. Because right now, they've got one that's due to.
Oh, you're
go
right, yeah,
effective
you are
January.
right, yeah.
No,
Which is weird
February.
with the effective date, that being after that, because it's the new ordinance won't be coming into effect until after that one's come into effect.
Right, so.
Because January 6th, I'm not sure how that works.
Right now, they approved one that will go
Yeah.
into effect in January.
Oh, I
January
gotcha.
And they'll
6th.
have to cancel that one or rescind it,
Yeah,
so that the new ones will.
So the old one
You
will
will
stay in
end
effect
up
for
with
one
new
more
rates
month
on
and then
top
you
of
get
the
the
other.
rate.
Yeah.
Make sure it's clearly defined in that, because it's funny, because the new ordinance doesn't become effective till 30 days after it's approved, which is after the new date. So yeah, it's an interesting.
Yeah, no,
dilemma
yeah,
you run into.
they've gotta do that, they've gotta do that separately, either in the November meeting or the December meeting, or else they'll go into effect in January.
Yeah.
Before they, and then you have another rate increase on top of it.
And then although I think back at it, I think actually we're in the phase, I don't have the ordinance in front of me. I know at Cave Creek Water and Desert Hills, the out years, there was actually some 0% increases. Because we got to the point that we didn't know what programs we're trying to fund, so we'd have to take a look at that.
Oh, yeah, basically.
The actual table, yeah.
Yeah. There was very little after next year that was.
Because we didn't know when we
Yeah.
went into it 22, what we needed.
And my understanding is they're gonna try to, we've been focusing on next year's rates, but they're really going to try, I think staff wants them to adopt 3 years. Just so you know.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Although they don't expect the 3rd year to actually go into effect. They hope to have a new rate study.
Oh.
Right.
And something. to
But it
replace
looks like at least that one form is 6% a year.
Yeah, but the new rate study may change that up or down, most
Okay.
likely up.
I see.
Yeah. And that's coming down to the clarity. I think it goes back to again, when we did 6 years in 22 is because after we did the first year in 2020, it's like right after, it's like, we really should have done another one. We waited a year, started it. And the 22, we asked for 6, just to give some certainty to it, but then we didn't know what the out years were. So in the case of the water systems, it wasn't that much. So it was just to help give some certainty to it, knowing that we don't expect them to be locked in that long. And the one big thing with water resources right now is like even Harquahala is we know what the cost of buying the water resources is, but we do not have the cost of operating and what the operational cost annually is. Yeah. So until we know that, that'll probably what it's
But
gonna
it's
factor
gonna be
in.
a percentage because the wells are already there, you told me.
Yeah.
So it's not all us. And
No, and then we already know there's already a private partner who's planning to do that, the basically withdraw the water, treat it to CAP water
right,
standards.
and then get it.
Pump it up to the canal and put it into the
Right.
canal for us, and we just don't know what that's gonna be, because that'll be an add-on to what we currently
Right.
pay for
Right.
our water resources.
And we're competing with every other town in the valley.
No, he only has 5 right now. That's the one thing we were talking about.
Yeah, Harquahala is a specific volume of water in that basin, and we are one of the earlier participants in that. Scottsdale has its own project, Vittler Water has its project,
Right.
Harquahala land users who we're partnering, Harquahala Valley land users is who we're partnering with. They were one of, I think, 5. Right.
Clean Creek and Buckeye were big.
Yeah, they're very
That's in
big.
it, Yeah.
Of the phase 1 proportion of the project, I think we're about 2% of the volume of water. You know, Queen Creek has gone all in with this project. They're up at 12,000 acre feet, and we're
Wow.
talking about 500 annually.
Okay.
So,
Our Queen Creek is.
yeah,
Lot of
Queen
work.
Creek is doing it because they need the CAP.
Yeah, they have no other
resource.
water.
And they're planning to build their own water treatment plant because the Cap Canal runs adjacent to them. They're planning to double the size of Queen Creek, bring in all the subdivisions, and they need water resources to all that to grow. So, they're planning out their future. So,
Okay,
very healthy discussion. Thank you, guys.
now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
It's on the floor. Motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Actually, William has to say that. All in favor?